What are you doing? We're trying to record a podcast. We're already late. We're late for the podcast. It's way past 12:30. Why is this happening? I saw that gun go shooting out the window. Fran Hoepfner is joining us. We haven't seen her in a long while. We're late. We got 5 episodes to go. Please, we have to record the podcast. She's sick.
Is that Naomi Watts?
No, this is the woman in the car.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, of course. Right. Oh, God.
Kind of my favorite scene.
That scene is so intense.
It's amazing.
Oh, God. Yeah. No, amazing.
You know what's kind of difficult?
What's
figuring
finding
out
quotes from individual chunks of
breaking
Twin
a
Peaks 3
season into like 4 parts and then being like, I gotta find a quote for one of these episodes.
I mean, you didn't have to. You could have begun the episode with like, I can't find a quote because of the specific format of
Here's
this.
the problem. We've been doing this show so fucking long that I've done that move 4 times now, probably. The novelty of weird, I couldn't find a quote is now overplayed. So I had to do that thing that was exciting, that was riveting.
It was fantastic,
gripping.
and it reminded me that I watched these episodes a little bit ago. Because of course, why didn't I
David.
recognize that? What?
When did you watch them?
I don't know, like a few weeks back.
David's gesturing with his head like it's in the corner.
Yeah. I haven't watched the next chunk.
Okay.
I haven't either.
Ooh.
And I haven't seen...
And
this
neither
is
is
my
Griffin,
first
I
time
assume.
watching
Really?
this. So
okay,
I actually don't...
We're in the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was worried about not being fully caught up.
No, we've been both for Griffin and Ben's sake, but also for listeners who are maybe also watching for the first time.
Yeah.
Mindful of like not talking about what's going to happen.
Now, can I
Great.
say there are
Now,
two
then again,
things...
Maggie did shoot Mr. Burns. What? And what's another like?
Tried to steal candy from a baby, and he was pointing at M&S. They thought it was Waylon Smithers because they were looking at it from the wrong direction, but he was doing M&S.
Yes.
Maggie Simpson.
What's another like famous TV cliffhanger that's not Who Shot JR that I could sort of...
Well, because of course Maggie Simpson shot JR.
Yes, she
He
did.
tried to steal candy from a baby, and he pointed at
Shot
M&S.
that motherfucker.
Yeah. What's another TV cliffhanger? Who killed Laura Palmer? I feel like that's a big.
But no, but that wasn't
famous...
the cliffhanger. That's the premise of the show.
Okay,
I'm talking about
cliffhanger?
a classic TV cliffhanger where it's like,
What's in the
okay,
hatch?
guys.
What's in the hatch?
Well, I was going to say we have to go
Yeah.
back later
Yeah.
We Have to Go Back is probably the best end of season
in Lost.
like that Lost ever
But
did.
that's kind of an interesting one because it's less a cliffhanger and more being like, holy shit, that's where the show is going
right,
next.
like more like
it was a promise
reorientation.
of- Right, you didn't know how that was going to manifest.
What's in the hatch isn't bad as
Thank
but
you.
a lot of people at the time were kind of like, wait, they're just gonna open the door and we don't even like the whole season of them waiting to open this fucking door and then we don't know what's in there?
I thought it was great. And
Me
you know,
too. I
you know
loved
what was
it.
great? The answer. My favorite guy.
He's awesome.
Big D.
Lost
I've been
fucking
thinking a lot about Lost.
nailed.
Both because I've been watching this and I
Yes.
think about
Yep.
that time of my life, but also Lost is holding up.
You know, I haven't
Ross is doing great.
I haven't done the rewatch. Joe Robinson, when she was doing the Lost,
rewatch.
Yeah.
The
I asked to
Storm.
come on only for Desmond episodes because
Yeah.
Desmond's my guy. So I rewatched only the Desmond arc, basically his solo
Right, which is probably
episodes,
pretty great if you
which I thought interesting and also felt very evocative during lockdown
Mhm.
to watch the Desmond arc, and he's my main guy. But I've been tempted to go back and watch all of it. Look, it's been coming up a lot in our watch through of Twin Peaks because this, of course, is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers. They're given a series of blank checks, make whatever crazy passion projects they want, and sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce baby. This is a mini-series on the films of David Lynch, but also his TV shows. It's called Twin Pods Firecast with me. Today, we're covering episodes 9 through 13
That's correct.
of Twin Peaks: The Return. And Lost has been coming up a lot as when you watch a thing like this, you're forced to like compare it to all the other great failures and successes of the kind of like shows that keep you on tenterhooks, spin out their mythology, raise questions, answer them or not, these things that become cultural phenomenons and how they sustain themselves.
Yeah, and I think Lost also had that thing, especially in later seasons, where the C storyline for an episode would be something extremely mundane.
Yes.
Of like, we're going to set up a library on the island, or like the golf course thing. And
Right.
there would be these almost little like soapy kind of storylines that had nothing to do with the greater mystery. If anything, would just be like, well, if you live on an island now, you're going to want a golf course, I guess.
Which is fascinating because at the time that was a thing that people would point to of like, they don't know where they're doing. The show's going to fuck it up. Like it's getting thin.
Totally.
And then Twin Peaks The Return is David Lynch being like, what if I really didn't resolve the things that you guys cared about? What if I didn't even spend that much time on the things that you previously associate with the show? It's like kind of crazy that Audrey only comes in this block of episodes.
Yeah.
Well, Audrey's part in Twin Peaks: The Return is a real curveball in general, I would say.
I'm already trying to wrap my head around it, and I cannot guess what's to come. Now, can I take you to task, David?
You can do whatever you want, but I was just looking at some like cliffhangers.
Yeah.
I mean, like Buffy dying at the end of season 5, but that
Hey,
kind of
spoilers.
well, sorry. But that kind of felt like, one of those things where you're like, well, I mean, it's coming back, so I assume they'll figure that out. Like,
Right.
It's a little different from like
Unresolved question.
the
That's-
best of both worlds, the classic cliffhanger of season 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where like Picard gets turned into a Borg,
Yes.
and they're like, to be continued, and you are truly like, I have to wait 4 months
Sure.
to find out. I mean, again, you're like, I assume he won't be anymore, but like, that you don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I think killing Angel in Buffy was more of a cliffhanger almost than killing Buffy.
Killing Angel,
Or when they
don't
banish
kill
him.
Angel.
They banish him to
Yeah,
whatever.
that's the thing. They just kick him into the hellmouth, where he comes back out and he starts a great detective agency. And then 9 episodes into that detective agency, he's like, I'm going to revamp the cast completely because this isn't working. And then they made
and
a
then
good
they
show.
made a way better show.
Yeah, and then they revamped the cast one more time because Joss Whedon is a problematic manager, and that final season also rocks.
Oh, it's so good.
Season 5 of Angel,
It's
Griff,
like the greatest
if you ever
season
get
of
to
any
it.
TV.
It's so
You're
fucking
gonna love
good.
it.
But you know about the Muppet episode, right?
That's Edlin's episode.
I know, but
Yeah,
you know about that, right?
Of course, it's Smile Time.
So fucking good.
Yeah. But didn't he? I think he wrote and directed that.
He definitely wrote it.
Yeah.
What if we took this vampire show and made it Boston legal? Is
right.
a great question.
And you're just like, well,
That's
that
a-
wouldn't
that's-
work. And
that's
then
a
they're like,
powerful
watch it work.
question.
And you're like, this works.
Yeah.
But like, it's more than that. It's like, what if he started working for the villains? And you're like, okay, that's a TV plot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the villains of this show the whole time. And now he's like, now you got to work for him. But the villains in Angel are an evil law firm. So they managed to turn it into like a weird evil law firm show.
So fucking Lost, right? Our guest is Fran Hoepfner. Already cited in the
He did direct it too, yes.
in the quote. Thank you, Fran Hoepfner, Fran Magazine.
That's right.
Um,
Features editor. No,
oh
I'm just
wow,
kidding.
new title.
Yeah, I was thinking about.
You demoted yourself?
Yeah, I was thinking about demoting myself, being like I got bought out or something.
Yeah, like, and
You
have
sold
like,
to Penske.
you could
right?
have like an
Yeah.
evil publisher who you're always railing against.
Yeah.
Like in the comments, you could be like, Fran Magazine would be producing more, but for evil EIC or like, yeah.
Obsessed with clicks. Yeah.
Yeah,
My
we got-
brother, who's like a founding member, is always sending me editorial notes where
'cause he's a
like,
founding member.
yeah, he's like, you haven't talked about WWE at all.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that. He's like, well, the readers are interested in that.
I'm hearing on the wind.
Yeah.
I think part of the conversation around Lost and it being one of the first shows where it really felt like there was a profound discussion happening between the internet and the makers of the show, right?
Mhm.
And people sort of felt empowered that they were like, we're being heard and recognized.
Yes.
I think the long tail of that, a thing that now is pervasive, especially in like streaming shows and sort of like shorter seasons, spaced out and whatever, is like we need to maintain the sense that we know where this is going from the beginning. And what I miss is the sloppiness of TV being like, fuck, something in the chaos of us just needing to produce 22 episodes in 9-month stretches with only 3 months off causes people to sometimes just be like, fuck, what if this is a legal show now?
Yeah.
We don't care about it seeming like this was our plan the whole time.
Yeah, or like, what if they go back to the 70s?
Right.
On Lost.
Yes. Just fun shifts like that. David, I want to take your task.
Okay. What did I do?
You spoiled 2 things for me.
Okay.
You're saying that you're trying not to talk ahead
I
about
am.
what hasn't happened.
I'm sorry if I messed up. What did I do?
The parentage, Audrey Horne, Billy's the son's name? No.
Yeah,
Yes.
Richard Horne.
I'm sorry. Richard Horne.
Yes,
is-
I referred to him with his last name, forgetting that, of course, that is sort of a spoiler.
Yes. Yes. I think we cut it out of its episode, but you ruined that for me. But here's the bigger one.
I would say it's not important really who he is, but it is sort of, I guess.
Can't say the moment was stolen from me.
Okay, fair.
I didn't get to experience it. Here's the bigger one that I find more offensive. In our last episode, I raised the philosophical question, does Dougie fuck?
Yeah.
And you said,
Yeah.
of course, we see Dougie fuck.
And I was talking about a future episode.
How? I think I'd remember that if that happened. And then when the sex scene happens in this, I'm like, this is 100% what David was talking about.
Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. I was an episode off.
It's
or
another
whatever.
thing that would have rattled me to my core.
What, Dougie fucking?
And apparently fucking better than anyone while doing as little as possible.
But like, he's just, he's just got his mojo.
Why wouldn't Dougie fuck?
Because
Well, because he barely knows how to like put his pants on.
Right. And I was like, there's no direct implication. I was reading that they're sleeping together. So I was like, let's fill in the space here. And David was like, of course, we've seen him fuck already.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I spoiled for you that Dougie does
indeed
get
fuck.
that thing on. Yeah. He does, whatever. Go to Pound Town
Yeah.
with his wife.
I'd say it's more like
Janie.
Naomi Watts gets her Dougie on.
Yeah.
Right.
Welcome, Fran.
Welcome,
Thank
Fran.
you.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
Long ago,
I'm happy to be here.
Long ago.
I asked you if you wanted to talk about Twin Peaks on show. This show.
The
On show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess initially we were thinking we would talk about Wild at Heart.
Yes.
And then you
Yes.
got mononucleosis.
I got
not to blow up your spots.
No, it's fine. Everyone knows. I got mononucleosis.
Acute mono?
Yeah,
Adorable mono?
sometimes.
That's what I used to call it when I had it. It sucks, doesn't it?
It's really bad because
Yeah.
there's kind of nothing they can do for you.
Correct.
They're like,
Wait
well,
it
you
out.
have it.
Right.
You have right. This is just like run out the clock.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've told this story, but I'm older than the usual person who gets mono.
Uh-huh.
And so they refused to test.
16. What's the age within canon?
Oh, I think I'm 26 now.
Right, 26.
But they were like, you're too old
Yeah.
for mono. So they didn't want to test me. I had to like beg them to test me for mono. The
Yeah.
mono test came back positive on the like doctor online portal, but then they called me to confirm it.
Mhm.
When they called me to confirm it, they said, and just checking your age is 13 years old. And I had to be like, no. And so they said like adult mono, which also really
Yeah.
made me laugh, though they're no different, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I think I got it when I was 22.
I think I know most people who had it in like college.
Yeah. They treated me like I was geriatric.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's you feel like a teenager. It's weird.
Yeah, I got all like weak and sleepy
Yeah, sure.
and
And you're just kind of like, Mom, shut up.
yeah. My lymph nodes got really huge. I couldn't wear
That's
wear
the
my
whole-
glasses because my lymph nodes behind my ears got so big
Yeah.
that my glasses didn't fit anymore. It was just all this stupid stuff. And so I just slept for all of July and I had no voice when I was first supposed to come on because
Yes.
of the sore throat. So I
So-
couldn't speak. I was silenced.
Right. So then rudely
Yeah.
by the mainstream media
Yeah.
and your body.
Mhm.
I said to David, maybe let's have Fran do a Twin Peaks return.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that gives more time for recovery. I did not know you had not watched it.
No, I mean Lynch was a huge blind spot for me. Everything
In
that
general.
I've watched
Okay.
leading up to this has been the first time I've
Wild.
seen it. Yeah.
At heart.
That's true. So you've watched all of Twin Peaks, seasons 1, 2, and 3, right?
No.
No, she said she hasn't
I have the
watched.
5 eps left
Yeah.
of
No, I know.
Oh.
1 and 2.
yes.
And then, all the way up to here.
Up
all
to
the way
here.
up to here.
Like over the
I
last
watched
few
Firewalk
months.
with Me and I
You
watched
Firewalk
about
with Me?
half the films.
Sure.
Mhm.
I'll do the rest.
Yeah, whatever. No rush. Take your time.
What are your general feelings on David Lynch
Yeah,
as someone
how's
coming to
that
this
been?
newly?
He's not really one of my guys. But and I don't have like a greater intellectual reason to
Yeah.
say that. He I had sort of put off getting into his stuff because it just never felt like it was going to be for me.
Mhm.
And I think the stuff that I've really gravitated towards in watching has been his most like ostensibly quote unquote normal stuff. Like Elephant Man is probably my favorite thing
Griffin's
my
as
favorite.
well.
that
yeah.
I've watched, but that's because it's austere and it reminds me of other stuff that I know that I like. But But the more that I get into Twin Peaks, the more I think about Lost, which is a fond time in my life. And I think I had this thing of like, I really loved season 1 of Twin Peaks. Season 2, I think like a lot of people, I had a lot of fatigue and annoyance with. I liked the sort of first chunk, and then when it goes off, it really lost me. And then it only very kind of got me back. And then I really was feeling very down on Lynch, and then watching Fire Walk with Me sort of brought me back really big, and I loved that. And so The Return, I feel so completely like baffled by it, and I think it's appealing to both all the things that I liked about original Twin Peaks while also indulging in all the things of his stuff that doesn't really work. Interest me, yeah.
I definitely like there's an odd thing. I mean, you've talked about David, and I remember seeing this kind of scuttlebutt online of like some people's impatience with like, when is Good Coop gonna return and when is the show gonna like actually start?
The realization of
it's this the whole time.
Right. Oh, so this isn't just some like preamble to us getting to Cooper is whole again and is solving crimes in Twin Peaks. It's like, no. The journey is the entire season. Like, and that's the story being told here, right? Like, no one told you that in advance. So when it was happening, there was a lot of confusion. And yeah, we've talked about it. You know, it was crazy.
I find it helpful that I'm watching this knowing that, like, having years to process secondhand, I should not put any expectations onto this of what I think it's going to be and try to take it for what it is. I do definitely still at this point, episode 13, like 3/4 of the way through it, feel like I don't really have any holistic handle.
No, I feel like I have no handle on it whatsoever, but it's frustrating me less and exciting me more. And my memory of this show airing at the time was that I felt like I would come into the office days after an episode would air, and
at
people
Fran
would
Magazine.
at Fran Magazine, and my editorial staff would be just like trying to explain it to each other, and it felt like when the adults are talking in Charlie Brown, where it just like I couldn't process it out of context. But even now, I think having someone try to explain it to me would not make sense, and I'm watching it.
Well, I'm going to try anyway.
Yeah, well, it's just sort of much more experiential than I realized, and much less looking at actors who I once saw young and now they're old. But I always love that. I'm always a sucker for that.
Jim Belushi.
Well, it's just crazy.
Well, I love him so much.
Yes.
Correct.
But it's also crazy how many people are dead in this cast now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're coming up on. I mean, it's 7 years ago this show now, right?
Yeah, but you have a handful of actors who died before it released, where this is like their final statement, and then just a lot of people. And some of it is just obviously like this was a show that had an older supporting cast to begin with, 3 decades earlier.
Who else are you thinking of who's dead? Keckner's still kicking.
Keckner's kicking. Forrester, dead. Sizemore, dead. Coulson, dead. Right, Catherine Coulson? Am I getting them right?
Yes. Yeah. I meant
Miguel.
Yeah, well, those are the people who died before the show came out.
Yes.
But Sizemore, of course, we lost him recently.
I got really scared that Michael Ontkina died, and then I was like, oh, he's just retired.
Yeah.
Which I respect, to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not dead, as far as I know. Haven't checked in with him lately.
Hold on, I'm going to do another dead count. This is like I do once a month I check in and I'm like, let's take stock of how many original Toy Story cast members are dead. I want to have the active list, and I feel like I need to do the same with Twin Peaks now.
Do you need to do that with Toy Story? Is
Arlie Ermey, Jim Varney.
Those are the big two.
Well, but I'm saying the list is growing.
Rickles is
Rickles is gone. Estelle Harris is gone. When I say original, I mean
Rickles?
Ratzenberg's with us.
Fine.
Ned Beatty's gone.
Well, sure. Well, it's Toy Story 3. I mean, he's not coming back. But I'm sort of like, for Toy Story 5.
That doesn't count?
No, I'm saying like for Toy Story 5.
Sure.
Will there be no Mr. Potato Head?
It's a great question.
Like what? Oh. Yeah, do they start to kind of soft retire these characters? Because Estelle Harris
was still alive, recorded new dialogue for 4, right?
Yeah.
Rickles, they scrapped the movie and started over so late that Rickles had never started recording. So they constructed his performance out of leftover takes of things he had done for like the theme parks and commercials and shit.
Right.
And in that movie, he just kind of makes like interjections from the side.
Right.
I'm always scared now that it's all just going to be like AI voice
That's my
stuff,
right,
which
that's
makes me
my
sad
worry.
and depresses me.
Especially with something like that where you're like,
With the voices, they can kind of get away with it.
but I'm like,
quote-unquote.
Rickles, the curveball, you can't fake that, right? Or the fastball, let's say. The Rickles fastball, the delivery. You could
Yeah,
get the
sure.
voice.
Maybe
but
they
it's like-
can't fool us, but the executives, the shareholders might be tricked.
I'm hoping they retire, the two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, I think that'd only be fair.
Yes.
Just, anyway, Twin Peaks: The Return.
Okay. I'm looking at the list. I'm trying to identify other people who have passed away. Go on, David.
What did you make of episode 8, Fran? Before we
Peggy Lipton.
move on.
Oh, the
to
crazy one.
The crazy one.
Peggy Lipton
yes.
passed away.
She did. R.I.P. Peggy.
Harry Dean Stanton passed away.
He did. He was very old.
He's
Really?
one of those
I thought he was
guys.
pretty young.
He read young on screen.
He looked.
For the last 40 years, he seemed as young as anyone.
Well, not to disagree with you guys, but he's one of those guys like Pete Postlethwaite, where this guy has only ever been the oldest man who's
It's
ever in any
correct.
room
Right,
whatsoever.
When
He
you
was
see
born a
him
Benjamin
young,
Button baby.
you're like, you see him young and you're like, that's just a different person. That's not Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah.
Like the Harry Dean Stanton I know was 100 years old in Alien or whatever.
Mhm.
The crazy episode.
Honestly, you look at young
I
Harry
liked
Dean
it.
Stanton, he looks really old.
Yeah, he really did.
He does.
He was born old.
He's pretty old here. He looks
Yeah.
old.
Yep.
So episode 8, which we are drafting from, we're moving off of to talk about this sequence of episodes. But episode 8 is a break in format, and it has a big nuclear bomb and a bug and lots of crazy
But
stuff.
a less complete break than I had been led to believe. It has 20 minutes of functioning like an almost normal episode before it then hard pivots.
Yes.
That's true.
I was ready for it to be complete end-to-end standalone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like thinking and drawing conclusions based on sort of visual evidence. So I just love to be shown a bunch of stuff and be like, go think about it.
Yeah.
Think about what this is.
So you were locked in on that one.
Yeah, totally. And I almost would prefer more of just sort of watching things come to life without back and forth dialogue a lot of the time, I think. But I remember it's the only episode of this I remember when it aired in real time, just because I felt like everyone I knew was going completely insane,
It felt
trying to
seismic.
make sense of it and reckoning with it being one of like the great modern episodes of television. But it's certainly not like anything I've ever seen, quote unquote, on TV. I'm sure you guys are getting into the weeds about, is this a movie or is it a TV show?
I so fundamentally think it is not.
A movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. But
Like, for me to accept that argument, he would need to re-edit it into one 18-hour work. Like, I think, even though the show does not have some strict, like, episode format that it conforms to every time, I'm like, there is a shape to the hour cycles.
There is, and they end, with music and so on and so
I'm
forth.
like, that alone just makes it feel like he is aware of, like, this is intended to be seen in 1 hour blocks, and that alone makes it a TV show, not a movie to me.
yeah, and I also think Firewalk with Me actually does really feel like a movie,
Correct.
even though it has these like two parts.
Right.
Yes.
But that feels much more largely cinematic in form and shape.
Yes, I think. For one, I think the whole is it a movie? It becomes this exhausting debate where you're kind of like, why are we fighting about this when we could just be talking about it, right? But I initially was very not into the it's a big long movie thing, because I was like, that just feels insulting or sort of disdainful of the television format, which is a great
Exactly.
storytelling
There's
format.
something backhanded to this notion of like, this is so good that it doesn't deserve to be called TV. And I'm like, that's
Right.
rude to TV. And also TV has its own
Well, I was going
power.
to say, watching this is making me nostalgic for when TV felt really good. And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I didn't watch this at the time of airing, but I watched what I felt like was the other really big 2017 thing, correct me if I'm wrong, which was The Leftovers, ended that year, which felt to me quite seismic and like something that has not really been replicated.
What year does Mad Men end?
Mad Men probably ends around then too. Mad
Yeah.
Men ended 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus, Mad Men
To me,
ended 9
Breaking
years.
Bad and The Leftovers. Breaking Bad to me is like kind of the last of the quote unquote golden age of TV. Not that it ended sooner than Mad Men,
It was like 2013.
2013 or whatever, but like, and then like stuff like The Leftovers and Halt and Catch Fire and stuff, which is amazing, feels like somewhat like where it's like, it was a little less ubiquitous. There was more TV at that point, so the zone was more flooded. People weren't talking about, like, focusing on, like, a show at a time.
Mhm.
During that like real boom time, it really felt like it's like Mad Men. We're all sitting down on Sunday night and watching Mad Men. That doesn't happen anymore at all.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But I feel like I cut you off a little bit. But the whole thing about the way in which he wrote this and shot this, leading, some argument to the idea that it's a little bit more of a movie than TV, I'm like, that's negated by then how he like packages it. Even if creatively it came out in a burst as sort of like one big thing rather than being written or shot as intentional episodes.
Right. I was going
The
to say
second he edits them as such.
the only argument I eventually sort of understood that distinguishes it a little bit, right, is that he did kind of make it as this one big chunk and he kind of cut it up later and he, broke a lot of the rules of TV. We talked about it already, how actors are used, right, where it's like they might drop in for like 1 second in an episode. That's crazy. So yeah, it's a little different, but I still think, fundamentally, this is episodic television. We watched it weekly. I watched it weekly. It was a great way to experience it because it's a great way to experience good TV.
Yeah.
And it's different.
I think more shows could benefit from having
And that's fine.
a very famous person show up for 2 minutes, and that's that.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be cool.
Rules. Is Disclaimer is the Quaron show? Is that what it's called?
That's right.
Yeah. So I was talking to my brother about it, who was very frustrated watching it. I have not watched it.
I've heard. I know almost nothing about that show. I've heard a lot of frustration about it, or like sort of gotten waves of hearing bad vibes.
Yes, and that's a thing where Quaron was like, I kind of think of it more as a 6-hour movie. I had originally tried to adapt this book as a movie, and then it became a TV show. But I really think of it as a movie, and I've thought about recutting it as a movie, all that sort of stuff, right? And my brother James's big complaint was he was like, episodes just end and then the next episode starts at the immediate following scene. And it really just feels like he made a 6-hour movie, put credits.
I hate that.
At the hour mark. And I'm
Right.
like, well, that feels sloppier to me of a guy kind of trying to avoid what television is as a format.
And that's the worst thing about the bloaty, post Golden Age streaming era of TV, where these people were like, I want to make this movie. And they're like, no. And they're like, could it just be a bloated television show? And they're like, of course, yes, please. We'd love that.
We talked about in episode 8 that when they cut to the Nine Inch Nails performance at minute 15, you're like, oh, interesting. They're fucking with the format that I've gotten used to. And then even episode 13 of this has the musical performance. You're waiting for starring Kyle MacLachlan to come up. And then instead, that plays over Big Ed eating instant lunch, right?
Yeah.
That alone is he's owning the medium of this is being watched in 1 hour increments, and I'm playing with your expectations of what happens in that 1 hour, and playing with trying to force patterns upon it and understanding upon it and all of that, which says to me it is intended to be watched this way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if Lynch wanted to do a 17-hour marathon, 18-hour marathon screening of this show, I'd imagine he'd be like, let me recut it.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays as 18 hours rather than just as if it were Netflix autoplay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then I'd be open to that being considered a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, we all agree.
Great.
But no, no one's ever gonna, well, I shouldn't say ever, but I don't think anyone's really ever gonna sit down and watch this in a movie theater.
No.
So, can't that kind of be the most important conversation here? Even the fucking Made in America thing.
Yeah.
The OJ documentary.
Yes.
Which was a television show, but was treated as a movie and released as a movie and won an Oscar and all that stuff.
But also felt like a breaking point conversationally where it's do we need to redefine the rules?
But that did screen in cinemas.
Yes.
You could go see it.
And I heard that worked very well as an experience. Yes.
So, maybe I should just go fuck myself.
But I think if you were to see an 18-hour screening of this, you'd be like, yeah, it's a weird experience watching 18 episodes of television in a movie theater. It wouldn't feel like I watched an 18-hour movie.
Right. But okay, Twin Peaks. Ben, do you have anything you want to say before we begin discussing these episodes? Did they hit you any particular way?
No.
Wow.
Great.
All right. Part 9.
Mm-hmm.
This is the chair is the name of the episode, sort of. They all have these kind of pseudo names.
Where did the episode titles come from? Because this is my
I
experience
think they're
of
just
being
quotes. I mean, they are
Simpsons
titled as part
obsessed
8, part
kid.
9. Yeah.
where the episodes had no title within the episode, and then you'd read the fucking compendium guide, and you'd be like, "That's what it's called."
Right.
In a pre-DVD streaming era where you weren't pulling titles.
Yeah.
You know.
They are technically just by letters, by numbers, but they do all have these sort of pseudo.
But where were
subtitles.
those titles? Were those only released for the first time on
I don't know when they were released.
TV Guide.
Yeah, on the fucking disc menus.
Are they on the disc menus? You can tell me.
I think they are. I think it says part 9. This is the chair or
So,
whatever.
maybe
But I
that
feel
was-
like on the episodes themselves, it just says part number, right?
It does.
Yeah.
So in this episode, do you guys want to tell me what happens?
Way to pass the buck, David.
Tim Roth is in the mix.
I'm looking. All right, so it's like we're post episode 8. We've got the doppelganger is alive. Mr. C has not died.
They stitch him up.
Right.
fine.
He gets stitched up by Tim Roth and Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Mhm.
What do we think of them? Hutch and Chantal. Have we talked about them yet on this podcast? They're
No.
kind of new, right?
I don't believe
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, this is where they're introduced.
Well,
Well, we met
she
Chantal.
briefly in 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
episode 2, right. It's kind of like getting LeBron James to play pickup basketball with you or whatever. It's like, who's going to play like 2 criminal lowlifes for me? It's like, can we just get Tim Roth and Jennifer Jason Leigh, right? Where it's like, well, yeah, they've done that a million times. It's like, yeah, but they'll be good, right?
Yeah, and they are.
Yes.
Like, because a lot of the character actors and the scumbags in this season are these faces you don't really know, where you're like, wow, that guy has a really cool face, and like that, that guy's got crazy hair, and I've never seen him before.
But this is kind of shorthand
And
casting,
right,
where
they
it's not
roll
just
in.
the look. You're like, oh, I can like carry over and extrapolate from the history of other characters these people have played. Yeah.
But yeah, so they're there, and they're around for for the whole rest of the season. They're sort of
Okay.
popping in and out. Like, this is not like one off.
Yeah.
The other big thing, I guess,
It's the text message.
is the text message.
Patrick Fischler
around
kind of
the-
activating.
Right. The
Yeah.
dinner table, the conversation is lively.
Mr. C sends this text message.
All right.
We're seeing that they're connected in some way.
And then, Dougie has thwarted the attack,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
From the crazy assassin, Ike
And
the
there's sort
Spike.
of the-
Use his proper name.
Ike the Spike.
Thank you.
Yep.
They're doing their ensuing investigation, Keckner and Eric Edelstein and the third guy, where they discover that Dougie has no history before like 1997.
He basically seems to have been invented out of whole cloth in 1997. And
These brothers seem like they have fun.
Oh, totally.
I kind of like, I'm an only child, and I was like, man, I wish I had some goofy brothers.
wait, which brothers are you talking about?
Keckner.
Right. And what's his name?
Eric Edelstein.
Eric Edelstein, and then Larry Clark is around
Okay.
there too, right? He's the other one.
Yeah, not kids Larry Clark.
No.
Sadly.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Eric Edelstein. What do I know him best from?
Green Room?
Yeah, I like Green Room. I forgot he's in that though.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Jurassic World. Okay, he must get like
Gets
eaten by
eaten. Yeah.
by raptor or
Yeah,
something.
I
okay.
believe that's exactly what happened. He maybe gets
wow,
eaten
I
by
nailed
the
it.
I-Rex.
I guess he's just done a ton. He's a comedian guy? Who is this? I
comedy
just
guy.
know this face.
He's been on Doughboys several times.
Wow.
Oh.
He's a
I
great
love that.
Doughboys guest.
Right, that's right. Okay,
Yes.
I knew I knew the name.
He's been on the George Lucas Talk
Okay.
Show. He's the voice of one of the We Bare Bears. I think he's also now Daddy Shark on the Baby Shark cartoon show.
There's a Baby Shark.
Oh, I thought you were
cartoon
saying on
show?
Shark Tank. I was like, I didn't know there was a parent. He's Mark Cuban's dad.
They'll be
Yeah, he is.
negotiating.
Damn.
They'll be negotiating a deal, and then I'll cut to a giant cartoon shark in a tank going, "I approve."
Yeah, they should have that.
He's like the
Sharks.
banker on Deal or No Deal.
Yeah.
Jesus,
I have a new
hope
business
my daughter
opportunity, but
never
I don't know
finds
if
out about
I'm-
this.
That was the
Ready
panic
to-
that set into your eyes when I told you there was a Baby Shark cartoon show.
What's your business opportunity?
I don't want someone to steal it. Listeners have to promise not to take it.
You're saving it for the sharks.
Yeah, maybe I'll save it for the sharks. It
Yeah.
is really good though.
Is it really?
What? Okay, if we
Don't you think
if
there's
all of our listeners promise not to
Yeah.
steal it,
Copyright Fran Hoepfner. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Phil and I came up with this together.
Okay.
There should be
Copyright
artisanal slime for adults. And it should be like how
Yeah.
adult flavors are now like yuzu,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
huckleberry.
so you're saying high end scents?
high-end scents,
Yeah.
maybe organic textures.
You say it's made out of organic shit. Who cares if it is or isn't?
It just
nobody's checking.
This is a huge gap in the slime market.
Bespoke slime
Yeah.
for distracted adults who just want the new version of a fidget spinner or whatever.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
it's
but
like
it has
how
to be elevated.
we went from fidget toys to like more mature fidget toys so adults didn't feel embarrassed to be using fidget toys. We need the slime equivalent of that, basically.
That feels like something TikTok would show me ads for. And I would be like,
And you'd
why
be
the
like,
fuck am I on this app?
And then we read an article a year from now and everyone's angry and they're like, Fran made how much off of this?
It could be good, right?
Fran sold her slime business for that much money to Satan himself?
Penske Media? Wait, they're the same company?
Okay, that's a great call. We got on that by Eric Edelstein being in the Baby Shark show, which my daughter must never learn about because we've escaped Baby Shark.
And you
For
escaped
now.
Minions, right?
I haven't yet gotten there. I'm worried that's just so overstimulating.
I'm
Like,
just curious that if you
Movies seem very loud and overstimulating.
To you
me.
or to her?
To me, she hasn't seen them yet.
Yes.
I'm just like, I feel like that's a lot.
I'm just
how
like,
I
when would a
feel.
child learn about the Minions if they haven't seen the movie?
The second she sees one, there will be questions. I have no doubt.
How has she like stepped foot in a grocery store without not seeing
I mean,
one?
she hasn't stepped foot in a ton of grocery stores, is I guess the answer.
Must be nice.
I mean, I'm not sending her out to do the weekly shop.
And why
she doesn't
not?
take a shift?
I mean, whenever she is in a grocery
Park Slope
store,
Co-op.
Yeah.
I don't belong to the Park Slope Co-op
Wow.
yet. Who knows? Maybe I will one day. But whenever she goes in one, she loves it because she's like, I want that.
Yeah.
Pointing at just name
She's
an item.
just like us.
Fun enough.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, banana. But like, I was thinking of maybe showing her Ice Age
Oh, sure.
because that seems like that's a pretty chill movie, right? Like, there's not a lot of
I
peril.
thought that
Like Wazamo.
Well, I'm not talking quality wise. I'm just talking like it's about a bunch of
No,
animals.
I'm just saying I can't speak to the manicness of
Oh, sure,
3,
sure,
4,
right.
5.
But it seems less manic to me than something like the Minions sort of world.
First one's like rock solid.
The first Ice Age.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's the animals with a baby.
It's not profound art, but it is
Right,
like rock solid
they're
family
animals.
entertainment.
I
Yeah,
forgot they had a baby.
Scrat
I'm just
hits.
remembering.
That's the weird thing. The first one is just like 3 men and a baby with
with Leary,
Oh, yes.
Romano, and like Wazamo.
right. And it's like, oh, we don't know what to do here. And then the
Right,
movies,
and the mammoth's kind of an Eeyore, and like
Right.
Wazamo's kind of like, and Leary is like, geez, these guys.
and it's very much about like the
9/11.
uneasy balance between the humans and the animals in this time.
It'd be funny
And-
if he was like, the saber-tooth tiger is just occasionally, he's like, 9/11 was fucked up though. And you're like, it was. Yeah, I completely
hasn't
agree with you,
happened yet.
Dennis. No, 2002, it had happened.
Yeah. It was fresh.
Well, I just meant during the Ice Age.
Well, Fran is right.
Oh, well, that's
It's
true.
It's not future Ice Age.
No, but maybe he could just kind of break the fourth wall
He
a
could be
second
like,
just to be
9/11
like, hey,
is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be bad.
right. You know,
Yeah.
Dennis Leary over here.
The first one is very much like the uneasy relationship between humans and animals, and it feels like the Ice Age is coming to an end rapidly. And then the movies were hits, and they were like, we're basically going to ignore that humans exist forever.
Right.
And
we're-
every movie is us kicking the can on an extension event.
Right.
Yes.
We're just keeping it in the Ice Age, baby.
Right. Ice Baby.
So you have the fun cops. The cops are cute. The
Are they supposed to be brothers?
They are brothers.
They are. Okay.
and we have a sequence right where Andy and Lucy are looking at chairs. Occasional kind of interludes, I think, with them, just maybe out of some respect for the audience that doesn't just want like Las Vegas murderers and like
This hits for me. But it's Lucy literally just toggling between two
Right,
color options on a chair, and then them having a bit of a fight over it.
I really turned on them in season 2.
Interesting. In what way?
Just that storyline is so drawn out.
the kid.
Yeah, the paternity stuff. Wally. I love
Such that-
Wally.
You love Wally when he came back in The Return.
Yeah, and was weird, as
Yeah.
many characters are in the show. But yeah, whenever they're sort of on their shit, I'm sort of tuning out. But I know what it's like to try to buy a chair, and it's hard.
I did think it was capturing a very specific modern phenomenon of endlessly toggling back between two options on a website and not knowing which to pull the trigger on.
Yeah.
so
the
much of
analysis
this,
paralysis of like,
Analysis
so much of this feels like much more engaged with how weird technology is than
Yes.
the original and what we can and can't do with a computer or a phone.
right.
And sometimes it's crazy you can do this. Look at 2 different chairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also like that thing of you write out a word a bunch of times and suddenly it feels like you're spelling the word wrong. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. We have a brief check-in with Johnny Horne, who has been played by various, actors over the years, is played by a new character here, but is this become this kind of like he's wearing this protective gear and like whatever, his condition has only deteriorated further. He runs around his mom. It's just a weird check-in with a character you might have forgotten existed.
I completely forgot
I
about.
forgot he existed.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have
they go to visit Widow Briggs.
Yes, Bobby, etc. Frank and Hawk go to see her name is Betty Briggs, of course. Yeah, to be like, your husband seems to be dead and possibly involved with something.
But we found the body.
She gives them
I saw this in a dream. I was told someday you'd come to speak to me.
Right.
And then
Classic
gives them
Briggs shit.
this cylinder hidden in the back of a chair.
Right.
It's so cool. I kind of wish I had secrets I could hide for people to eventually discover.
That's
can
within
do
your
that.
power. You could do that right now.
You could even leave messages in this podcast.
Yeah.
For future people to try and understand.
You can foretell things.
It wasn't me.
Oh, that's really smart.
I'm gonna go buy a Shaggy record.
That's going to absolve him of everything. He said it on the record. Now they can't pin anything on him.
It would just be funny. I mean, you're literally someone who buries things canonically.
Yeah.
True.
So people would start to be like, did Ben bury something else and we haven't found it yet? And if I analyze everything he ever said, will I, figure out what it is?
Yeah.
I definitely didn't do any kind of burial in California.
Well.
Okay. All right.
Huh?
That's one clue. State of California. The big twist, of course, is that Diane gets the creepy text message. We do also, right. We have that is where Jerry is talking to his foot still. This is sort of in this episode doesn't have a lot of action. I feel like it's mostly spooling things up again, right?
I think it's important to point out that William Hastings is revealed to be an alternate dimension blogger.
Yes, right.
Reveal.
That's the thing. We have sort of the resolution to some extent of William Hastings, who's the Matthew Lillard character, who dies during this
set of episodes
that we're talking about. His head,
I was so
his head
happy
do explode.
to see him come back.
You were
And
happy to see him
then
come back.
So dismayed, because I thought we were done with Lillard.
He's so fucking good.
He delights
so
me.
I'm
good.
just always so happy to see him
Right, so
pop
this
up.
is where he's being interrogated, and he's basically like, "Yeah, look, man, I'm a blogger. There's weird shit going on. I didn't know what was, I was
he was
opening
having
up
an
here."
affair.
It was funny that it's like, yes, we were having an affair because of my blog.
Right.
Which doesn't really happen anymore, I feel.
You don't think there's blog affairs?
Not with the gutting of media
This
in our
is true.
modern
This is true.
in our modern day.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they took from us.
They are the string leading to Briggs. That's basically their purpose in the overall story.
Yes.
That they kind of encountered the Major in some way when they were investigating the zone, right? This alternate dimension that he vanished into.
I read a really good profile on Lillard recently. I know we talked about him a lot in the first chunk of episodes on Return. And I was saying my confusion about how it felt like he had this early 2010s, he's starting to get back out there in interesting supporting parts, and then it didn't totally stick. And then now it feels like it is weirdly sticking post Five Nights at Freddy's.
Right, he's in that.
He's hot again.
Again?
Yeah, but I'm after Descendants, hearing people loved him on this. There was the moment where he was in Trouble with the Curve, and he was in a couple other things where you're are people starting to value Lillard again? And he basically said that in the early 2010s, he hit a wall, was really cynical and angry about that his movie star status had not maintained, and was in that position that a lot of people get in where they're I'm so desperate to hold on to being number one on the call sheet that I hold on to that in increasingly worse and worse projects. where he's in like the direct-to-video Nims Island sequel and shit. And then he like called his reps and was like, I'm going to downscale. I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to move into a smaller home. I'm going to like change my lifestyle. I want to be an actor. Your job is to find me good parts to do. I don't care about my status. I want to like re-engage with what I like about acting.
Okay, but do you know who the star of Return to Nims Island was?
Isn't it Steve Irwin's daughter?
What
Bindi?
the hell is Nims? Is this like Rats
Bindi
of
Irwin.
Nim?
Exact. This is the fucking direct-to-video sequel on a movie you don't even remember existed. The original.
The original was a 2008 children's adventure starring Abigail Breslin and Jodie Foster called Nims Island.
And Gerard Butler.
Jerry Butler's in it. Is he the villain or is he
Nims
dad?
Island?
I think Nims Island is a weird kind of like children's romancing the stone thing where she is a author who writes adventure books, but then she gets caught in a real adventure, and Gerard Butler is the projection of her fictional character. Like he's like a fake Indiana Jones.
Well, I'm not going to
getting
check.
Peanuts kind of parents sounds right now. It's weird.
What I'm saying is that like only 7 years before this, Matthew Lillard was doing that.
But now he's doing good. I hope he's doing good. I mean, I only want happiness for him, right? He's not like he hasn't
No,
done
he seems
something.
like a lovely guy.
Right. It's not
From
like he has like a
Michigan.
big crypto position that I don't know about, right? Like,
No, this piece was really good. I love his work, but he was just sort of like talking about the feeling of like, I'll make this a short sidebar. But like Freddie Prinze Jr. has also complained about this. Sarah Michelle Gellar has also complained about this. The first Scooby-Doo movie was so fucking big, was one of the most successful movies Warner Brothers had up until that point.
it's a movie you love to talk about.
And then they immediately greenlit a sequel and then went to the cast and was like, fuck you. And they tried to cut everyone's salary.
Whoa, sure.
They told Freddie Prinze to take like a major pay cut. Like everyone was sort of like, why are you treating us like shit? You seem to have some resentment for a hit movie. And then they dumped the sequel in March. And it didn't totally bomb, but it certainly was like way off from the first one. And then we're like, weird, this didn't work. I guess you guys are old news, and kind of blame the failure on all of them.
But like,
And Matthew Lillard was like, that kind of like broke all of us.
It
that we
did.
like had a hit where we were like, oh, I guess we're all going to keep doing Scooby movies and that will be able to like bankroll our weirder projects on the side. And immediately Warner Brothers was like, seemed weirdly resentful of us.
but they were kind of over. Right? That's sort of the funny thing to think. Like, not so much Lillard.
Yes.
Because Lillard's like, you know, you can always use a Lillard. You could use him in Twin Peaks: The Return. You could use him anywhere, right?
Sure.
But like Freddie Prinze, by 2004, 2005, it's kind of like, yeah, no, you're not going to make the leap, buddy, right? You know,
He was the
you're
one, and he had
all
a similar thing to Lillard, where then he like hard pivoted to voiceover for a while, and now has started like acting on camera again. But like, The Grudge is the same year as Scooby-Doo 2?
The Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar is, of course, have you seen The Grudge, Fran? Scary.
No.
The same year, 2004.
Seems scary. This show's scary.
Yeah, this show is
Blank
scary.
check.
How are
Yeah.
you?
Both.
You don't love scary things, although I know you've gotten much braver in recent years.
Brave
You used to
friend.
be, when I first met you and we first became friends, you were not brave.
No.
Like, and you had not really seen a lot of horror or mega sort of violent, scary things, right? You would mostly avoid it.
Yeah. I'm braver. How is this? It's yucky. I wish I sort of agreed with the sort of central violent conceit that if someone's head goes sort of squish and crunch, it's like maybe funny or something.
Right.
Mostly I'm just like, ew, every time. But
You're talking specifically with Lillard mode, or sort of the recurring
I
head
feel like
violence?
the recurring head violence in episode 8,
Yeah.
sort of in
Yes.
that it's the first episode where the two in the lab get all maimed and fucked up.
With the cube.
Mhm.
Yeah, the sort of like similar types of violence in this
Mhm.
sort of wear me down. Don't scare me so much. But I do think this show in general is quite unnerving.
I am-
Very, and it's also very just bleak in energy and sort of, you know, even when it's being funny, it's just like when you're visiting with Twin Peaks again and you're happy to see your friends, there's also just this mood in the town that's really like sedate.
Well, the
and
woman
kind of
honking. The
Yeah.
woman
and then
honking.
things like that
scene
happen
is
where you're
like,
like you're
you're like,
that's like an
I'm like,
ecstatic
get me
moment.
out of here.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's
wait,
nails on
what were
chalkboard.
you going to say,
No,
Griffin?
no, I am starting. It is starting to get to me living in Lynch World for months, and this isn't the first time I've said this.
Look, we're pivoting out soon.
Yeah, we're going
To-
on to Penny Marshall next, and that's
We're
going to be...
not.
Oh, that would be so fun.
We're
I'm sorry,
not.
You're
Wait,
calling
that's-
me a liar
That's
on
such
mic?
a good idea.
Thank
We
you.
will do
I'm
Penny
proud of
Marshall
it,
on
and
this
David
show one
approved
day.
of it. Yeah, we'll do it one day, and that day is January 20th.
No. But we are pivoting to, more straightforwardly accessible work.
Yeah, we're offering our
It's not all
listeners
comedies or whatever.
a penny for their thoughts, if you will. Winky, winky.
So yeah, Jerry sees his foot. It's not his, but yes, I guess.
I love David Patrick Kelly.
Talk about him. Please.
I grew up watching The Warriors.
Yes, David Patrick Kelly, of course, plays Jerry Horne, a sort of
shit.
lesser character, but
he's-
he is Luther in
he's-
The
What
Warriors.
the
fuck?
He
Warriors
is the
come out and
guy.
play.
He's
Yeah.
the bottle
Dude,
guy.
I
Yeah.
never
Oh, yeah.
realized that until this very moment.
I
That's
I
crazy.
locked into season 1 because I was like, Warriors.
He's got an
Damn.
incredibly distinctive face, and yet he's able to change his appearance around it a lot. And every time I see him in something, I'm like, that is him.
It's the voice.
It's the voice.
I was lucky enough to see him in the recent Into the Woods.
Who
that
did he
they-
play?
The narrator or what?
Fuck.
And that was another one where halfway through I was like, wait a minute.
Yes, he's always a wait a minute guy for me.
And I love him. I wish there was a little more of him in this.
Yes,
You excited for the Warriors musical?
it's a concept album.
Oh, it's a concept album.
I think
I'm
I don't
curious
want to
about
speak
it.
for anyone,
I'm
including
curious too.
friends of the show, but
Yeah.
I think that it could become a musical,
Sure.
right?
For the time being, it's a concept album.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't want to give Hollywood any more ideas for free, but I was always surprised that Warriors wasn't something that sort of ballooned into. I know that's there's the movie and there's the video game.
That was the moment where it
Which we
felt
had.
like, are they gonna try to explode this as a cult thing?
Yeah.
And then because it was also Rockstar being we're basically their blank check, it felt like, of using the Grand Theft Auto cachet to be this is our dream project.
Yeah.
And it felt like the game did not explain. Am I wrong about this, David?
No, you're not wrong, and it not beyond that, it was kind of a logical thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking for, it makes so much. What surprises me is that it's never been remade. I know there've been, discussions of
Many.
a possible remake.
Many
Tony
discussions.
Scott, I know, wanted to do one or whatever, but
I think
It's-
David Ayer said he was
yeah,
gonna
and
do-
I think Neville Dean and Taylor at one point were,
But the
or
thing-
one of those two.
The thing that kept on coming out about the versions that those people were working on was that the twist was to make it more grounded.
Yes,
And I'm like, what
Well,
the
right.
fuck are you talking about? That they were well, we want to treat it like real gangs, none of the
No.
cartoony shit. And I'm like, who gives a shit?
No, they should all be in silly stuff.
They should get
with fun
sillier.
weapons. It should feel. I think that movie is good because it feels like a video game.
Yes.
To some, it's now you're in this level, now you're in that
Totally.
level, and that's a structure in movies I think we've run away from a little bit.
Yes.
Right.
But it's effective and it's
Incredible.
fun.
Yes.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, nah, don't try to straight remake. It's something like what Lynn is doing is more probably a cool way to come at it from a new, approach or whatever. Or video game. One day someone will make a great Subway video game.
Okay.
Obviously,
pitch on
you've
this.
got stuff like Streets of Rage or whatever where there's a Subway level
Mhm.
Yeah.
you're battling through. But
You mean an action-driven one versus
kinda an
you're
open
running
world.
the MTA?
Well, that sounds fun too. And I think
MTA management.
those kinds of things exist where it's would you like to painstakingly pretend to drive
Sure.
a subway car? Yeah, you can do that.
Right. That game is called Your Dreams.
But some sort of open worldy game that's set in a subway system, right?
Sure,
Where
like
you
a
can
virtual sandwich
kind of
sandwich artist simulator kind of game.
kind of a cool idea, right?
Yeah.
Someone get on that.
Sure.
I mean, it's cool in video games when there is a subway system.
Mm-hmm.
Like Grand Theft Auto, I think when it had the New York set games, especially, they would have a subway that you could use. But it's more like a sort of them being yes, look, we have
That's
everything.
another
Right.
vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Like in Alien Isolation, there's a big subway system-ish, between the space stations, parts. It's always cool to get on the subway.
This episode ends with a Sky Ferreira scratching her armpit.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
She'll do this, but she won't put out a new album?
Well, I mean, come on.
Sort of
Fran.
pandering with a joke like that.
You're
but
not afraid to say it.
Wait.
I'm ready for the new music. What?
Wait, it's this episode?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I wrote Sky Ferreira in all caps, ?
Scratching.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there something else in this episode that we're not referencing? I don't know. Probably not.
Scrub through again.
I like when Gordon and Diane have a cigarette.
Yes. So you're right. But we have this kind of inkling that Diane is not on the level
Uh-huh.
and is somewhat connected, right, to these unsavory elements in Vegas and all that, but we don't really know what's going on yet, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess, do we want to talk about the thing in the chair, Bobby smashing it?
The cylinder.
The
cylinder, and it referencing
Jack
Jack
Rabbit's
Rabbit's
palace, right.
palace. And
Oh, right. It has the slips of paper in it.
Yep. That's all important little details.
Right, which is like a place that he and his dad would talk about, like this kind of made-up place, right?
Yeah,
Jack
the
Rabbit's
Jacks.
palace.
Yeah. I am very much watching this, trying not to put more or less importance on any element that is introduced to me. You know, like, I don't know if it's just the way I've now trained my brain to process this,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like I'm now veering wildly in the opposite direction of maybe how people watched it at the time. Where I'm like, I think if I'm trying to look for specific answers or clean resolutions to things, it will frustrate me. So I'm just taking every scene as it is.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Especially after the last episode.
I think the way
Yeah.
you watch The Return, especially the first time around, is to do exactly that. And then later, right, if you want to be like, you know, let me cast my brain back or let me sift through things and be like, oh, I guess that did connect to that, and it did sort of resolve. Like, there are things that kind of resolve.
Yeah.
Or things that are explanatory in the background that, yeah, they do pay off. It's not like this is a show that just throws a bunch of info out there and it's like, anyway, life's meaningless. But then it is kind of a show that does
I do
that.
think it's kind of
But I also think if you're like looking
doing
at all the
both.
numbers on those little pieces of paper in the cylinder, you're not going to find anything, you know, satisfying.
Right.
Or it's not like the Lost stuff where there'd always be some new numbers to like punch into. Like, you can't do that.
the two shows I just keep kind of like comparing this to in my own experience of being someone who is actively watching and engaged in the fucking feedback of it at the time and all of that shit. There's like the Lost thing where it's like, this is solvable.
Yeah.
Right? They're like seeding clues. And maybe not all of this is going
Right.
to work, but like anything they're putting in is towards some like fixed end.
But God bless, that was wrong. I
Correct.
mean, the thing about Lost that I love Lost, but right, they would have things like there would be the map,
Yeah.
that had been drawn on the in the station. Like there was this
in the hatch. Yeah.
in the hatch, right?
Right, the
that
black
had
light
all
map.
this
Yeah.
Yeah.
writing on it,
Yeah.
and people were like, "What does this mean? What is it?" And then it turns out they were kind of like, "Yeah, I mean, there's like 3 things in there that we'd thought
Right.
about, and then there's a bunch of other shit where we were like, that sort of has the vibe of the kind of mysteries we've been doing, and maybe we fill it in, or maybe we don't."
Well, and everyone I know who goes back to watch Lost is like, it's so much more fun to watch when you're not doing all
Right,
the
when you're
like,
not worried
interior
about
math
like
and
what
just
does
letting it
everything mean.
wash over you.
Yeah,
But I also like I think about Mad Men and the experience of watching that show and that having long gaps between seasons and it being a
Yeah.
show that felt very elusive
Mhm.
and like the level of theorizing of shit where people were like, I think I solved it. Like, what's her name? Jessica Perret, her character. Megan?
Of course, Megan,
Right.
Draper, but
Yes.
Calvert. There we go.
Was wearing a shirt that famously
Yeah, people thought, is she going to be Sharon Tate? Right, the
Right.
Sharon Tate War. Yes.
Right. And then they were like, and this with the Beatles and it's Helter Skelter. So are they trying to tell us that she's going to get murdered? Or
Right.
like a season would end with something like, oh, the foundation of the new agency, the like Sterling Cooper Draper Price.
Yes.
And you're like, wow, so the next season's going to be all they're doing it their way. And then 2 episodes in, like Draper torpedoes the whole thing.
Right. Well,
Anytime you tried to game out where that show was going, the show was like, we're not interested in this shit.
I mean, my favorite thing about Mad Men, right, is that people keep being like, who I need for my new firm or my spinoff
Right.
is Don Draper. And then they hire him and he's like, so I just like go to the movies all day and I'm constantly drunk
Yeah.
and I'm not very nice to work with. And they're like, what the fuck? And he's like, I've always been like this.
And these
This
like
isn't
cycles
new."
repeat themselves and things that feel like meaningless elements become huge and things that feel like they're huge tee-ups for the future of the show immediately are abandoned
Yeah.
in a way
I
that
had a
feels
friend-
like accurate to life to me.
I had a friend who was convinced that the opening credits of Mad Men of a man falling, were like, they're like, that's the end of the show. Don will kill himself.
So many
I
people
remember.
had
Yeah,
that
yeah,
prediction.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't think so, man. I don't think that was what they were. I think they were just kind of going for a vibe with whatever graphics they got,
That is like the post-Lost shit. And then I think more and more shows are trying to do that, right? In the wake of Lost. And I think like Twin Peaks starts that to a certain extent. But the success of Lost to be able to sustain that for a way. And to a certain degree, it's like broken people's brains.
Yeah. Well, I think Breaking Bad had that kind of puzzly stuff
Yes.
too. And maybe Saul, but I never watched Saul, where that feels
Yeah.
more inherently baked into the structures that there's some like puzzle or mystery.
But Saul, right, had promise of that, but it turned out Saul was kind of doing a different thing. It had the
Whereas I
this
never
ending
got
up?
the sense that Mad Men actually had.
No, it didn't.
That, yeah,
but
like
that's what Griffin's saying. At the time, people's radars were kind of up more.
Yes.
yeah.
Episode 10.
So we got Richard being insane. Richard, sorry to spoil, Horne, right, harassing Miriam, who's the woman who saw him commit murder.
Yeah, I'd say it goes beyond harassing.
Yeah, being very, very, very scary. Richard, probably the most evil character in Twin Peaks. Thoughts, Fran?
I agree.
I looked up this actor the other day. I don't think I've seen him in anything
He
else.
looked really familiar to me, though. But I can't place him.
Wait, which actor?
Who plays Richard?
Eamon?
Okay, so the actor's name is Eamon Farron.
He's an Australian actor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he's also in Jennifer Lynch's movie Chained, which I've never seen, but maybe that's the connection here. I don't know, like, where they really found this guy. He has the most amazing face in the world.
I was going to say, it's one of these things where, like...
he's in The Witcher, but I feel like none of you guys watched The Witcher.
I watched The Witcher, but I couldn't...
Well, he's in it.
I can't place him in that either.
Okay. He's the guy who's like... He's
huge
like the
piece
evil,
of shit.
Yeah, evil army guy. Yeah, he's not a good character.
Oh, actually, maybe I do know who this is in Witcher.
A face like that, I think you're just rarely going to be cast as like Jim Nice Man.
I was going to say.
Yeah, well, he reminds me of the eye patch brother on House of Dragon a little bit, who also has such a great face, who is called Eamon in that show.
Right.
But not in life.
I didn't watch season 2 of that show because I know it involves so much like baby murder, and I was like, I'm not ready for this right now.
That's
I will
fine.
watch it
I
later.
will tell you, that's a season of TV I finished watching, say, in like the last weekend of July of this year.
And it's gone.
I can't tell you a single thing that happened this season or how it ended. So maybe don't.
Yeah, maybe I won't. I don't know.
Oh, but you know who I remember? Simon Russell Beale.
Yeah, love him.
Well, he's in the mix.
Yeah, no, I know. He's right. He's wearing robes and stuff. Amazing he didn't made it to Thrones until then. Wait, Griffin, what do you want to say?
I was going to say, he has such an inherently evil face, and I don't want to make this sound like a statement about the actor, and I admittedly haven't seen him in other stuff, right? But like Frank Silva, you know, all the stories of Lynch just seeing him on set and being like, wait a second, if you made this face and your look is so specific and whatever.
Yes.
And he's doing kind of like a scary haunted house, like, ah! And you're like, yeah, I get it within the language of it. If that guy does that, it reads as like scary evil, right?
Right.
But it feels like he's kind of playing like scary evil in quotes, which makes sense because he's like more of a force than he is.
He's a ghost or whatever, right?
God.
He's not, right. Whereas, yes, go on.
This guy just looking at anything, I'm like, this is the most evil motherfucker who has ever lived.
Absolutely. Yes.
Just him neutral before he even starts doing shit. And then when he throttles into like kicking through a trailer door, it then becomes that much scarier. And I assume he is a lovely, well-adjusted man and has much range as an actor and can play other things. But I see him in this and I'm like, they like conjured him through the depths of hell.
When do we find out that he's a Horne? It's not initially, right?
No, not at all.
It's when he goes to his
Ben.
grandmother's house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he goes to Ben and you realize like that's the connection. I don't want to say anything more because now I'm afraid of spoiling like sort of his origins or whatever. But yes, initially you're just like, who's this? And he's
Correct.
kind of just this like ball of lightning, like that is like the worst thing in the world, just tearing through town. You've also got to check in with Caleb Landry Jones, Caleb Laundry Bag, and Amanda Seyfried in the trailer park run by Harry Dean Stanton. Things are also going bad for them. This is like the bad vibes time.
But Harry plays a little song.
Yeah, he's
which I love
playing the
to
guitar.
see.
Yeah.
It's so great. He's really like, I'm surprised how good of a singer he is.
Right. So you got the Mitchum brothers, Rodney and Bradley, played by Robert Knepper. You know, a TV character actor, right? I mean, how would you describe Knepper? Obviously, most famous for Prison Break.
Yeah.
People wrote a lot of weird fanfic about that guy.
Who was he in Prison Break?
Teabag.
Oh, of course.
It was one of those characters where they were like,
yes.
he's a recurring villain. He's like a pedophile. He's like the nastiest villain in Prison Break. And immediately the viewers of like this 8 p.m. Fox show were like, more of him. Put him all over this show. What?
My brother's always rewatching Prison Break.
I know there's some nasty allegations about Robert Knepper.
There's some
right?
bad
Yes.
stories,
Yeah.
but I do think like both in terms of his public persona and the roles he plays, it is that sort of just like immediate, this guy's bad news kind of thing. That's his vibe. Is that fair to say?
And he's in the show, and you that's the whole thing with him, and then Bradley, who is played by Jim Belushi,
Yeah.
who
According to whom? Where are you getting that
according
info?
to Wikipedia, but you know who was initially supposed to play this role?
John Belushi.
Paul Giamatti was supposed to play one of the two Mitchells.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
actually not sure which, but you think it would probably be the Belushi one because
Huh.
it feels like Belushi is more of a stand-in, because it's like kind of one skinny mean guy and one big kind of doofy guy.
Yeah, but Motz and Belushi would be interesting
I mean,
together.
Any combo is probably interesting.
Yeah.
But I love the presentation of these guys as like Vegas heavies,
Mhm.
right? Like scary guys who you don't want to see at your door.
Mhm.
But then all of the stuff we have with them is the goofiest,
Yes.
most like airy, ridiculous comedy. The first sequence is when the girl tries to swat a fly and
Right.
hits
The
Rodney
three
in the
buds
head.
phone.
who live with
Yeah.
them.
And
My
they're all,
favorite-
like, screaming.
My favorite character.
Yes.
She's the
Candy?
best.
Candy.
She's so
Candy.
good.
She just, there's something about those moments where they're speaking to her and that recurring like comedy bit they do where she's just kind of spaced out. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And I feel like the further episodes we have with these guys, with the box with Dougie out in the in the
Well,
later
right. I mean,
episodes, it's just fucking
They're fun.
hilarious.
This
Yes.
is one of the few things that feels like it's setting itself up in a very clear, propulsive narrative way, which is like the threads are being pulled together that Mr. Jackpots is the same guy who works at the insurance firm.
Right.
And Fischler has activated Sizemore. I know I'm getting ahead a little here,
No,
but I
whatever.
feel like
It's fine.
these 5 episodes really cover this sort of mini arc.
Right. Like the wake of Mr. Jackpot's like bankrupting a casino kind of and pointing out this insurance fraud and like his disruptive energies.
Right.
Right. What they do to this weird Vegas-y,
Right.
Arizona
That
ecosystem.
Fischler is activating Sizemore, who clearly already was kind of in on his own scam with them, but also strongly dislikes Dougie.
Yeah.
That there's this sort of like propulsive, Dougie needs to be assassinated.
Yes.
Dougie needs to be
Take care
taken
of this
out.
problem. Right.
Right. Can Sizemore point the mob towards Dougie so they take care of him themselves, or is Sizemore going to have to clean up the mess if they don't?
Right.
Yeah. The common enemy.
Right. And so Ike the Spike is the first attempt at that. That doesn't work. That's how they become aware of him. Dougie, meanwhile, has like gone to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "You're now the fittest, handsomest man in the world.
Yeah.
Your old chart says you're a piece of shit. Not sure
Yeah.
what's going on there."
Naomi Watts, I prescribe you fucking him tonight.
Exactly. I guess you gotta go home and break a bed, Dolomite style,
Yeah.
right? Like just have Dolomite sex.
They do have, David, that's a very good
Right?
way of putting it.
Yeah. God.
They
What if
fucking human tornado.
What if I like joined a dating app and my thing was like, I want to have Dolomite sex? Anyone like, you know what I mean? Like who understands this reference, let me know. Otherwise, don't get in touch.
I'm going to throw out a couple reasons you shouldn't do that.
I'm probably not going to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. Oh boy. So they have sex.
Uh-huh.
We have another episode of Dr. Amp. I
Yeah.
forget what he's yelling about this time. Do you like
Sugar.
Dr. Amp?
Yeah, he's like good Alex Jones.
Yeah. Like people are like, who's the left's, Joe Rogan? Is it Dr. Amp?
It's Dr.
We
Amp, where
could
he's like,
use-
there's too
yeah.
much sugar and everything's poison, which I basically agree with, though I like eating the poison, to be
Of
clear.
course. I'll keep drinking that garbage.
That's
Exactly.
an informed choice.
But I'm not happy about it, but I like eating it.
Of course.
I like Dr. Well, I just love Russ.
Yeah, how do you feel? We haven't really asked you what you thought of like original Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
I know
that's a
you
good line
found
of question.
Fire Walk with Me very rattling and
Mhm.
good.
Yes.
I think to your
Moving,
surprise, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Which to a lot of people's surprise, when they get around to that movie, they realize it's amazing.
Yeah. Original Twin Peaks?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have my guys I like, my guys I don't care about. I like some of the more
Give us a little bit of who's your power ranking, who's on your shit list.
who's on my power. I like the kind of evil people in the show.
Okay.
So go
Because,
ahead.
so I like, the Horne brothers.
Mhm.
And I like, is it Ray? Norma's like ex-husband.
Oh,
No, that Ray is
Ray's the other guy in
the
this.
guy with Mr. C who tries
Mhm.
to kill him and fails. You're talking. What is that guy's name?
I forget, but I love that guy. I love Bobby. I mean, I think the arc of Bobby from original Twin Peaks to The Return is like so profoundly
agreed.
beautiful.
My favorite
And
arc in the show. Hank is who you're talking about.
Hank.
Jen.
I love
Chris
Hank.
Mulkey. He's just one of those guys where you're like, oh, I know Chris Mulkey, and he's in a lot of Twin Peaks, but he's the 18th most important character, so I forget, what he does. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I like Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care about James.
I like James a lot.
I don't care about Lucy and Andy.
See, you're naming my favorites.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
I
you
like
the more
both Trumans.
open-hearted characters, Griffin, the kind of sweetie pies.
Although
you like both Trumans,
I
yes.
do like. I think holistically across the entire Twin Peaks project, Dana Ashbrook is maybe the most impressive performance.
I agree.
Totally.
Right? I
Yes.
think like what McLaughlin is doing specifically on the return trumps that. But then I also think like Ashbrook remains the second best performance on this. Like I think, I don't know, we've talked about it before, but it's just kind of astounding the range he has to be able to play all the different sides of what Lynch wants. Whereas it feels like a lot of characters or actors only land on one side.
Mhm.
Like the fact that he is the character who's shared on both of our lists
Yeah.
when we maybe show preferences to different sides of Twin Peaks is like he's kind of the only character that feels like he can adjust and adapt to any type of scene he's in.
Well, and I think Lynch is kind of interested in the perpetuation of a certain kind of, dare I say, male violence.
Yes.
Which comes up again and again in this work and other stuff. And with Bobby, it feels like he's exploring why someone might become violent and also what can save them from this violence, because he's such a dynamic and horrible character upon introduction. And then you start to get into the weeds of like what his life is like and what he's motivated by and this sort of disaffected youth culture thing that he comes to represent. I absolutely love him. I wish there was more of him in The Return, but there's sort of just enough also to maintain something.
It's so high impact
moving.
whenever he is in there.
Well, and he's got the Knoxville silver hair that also like the second I see someone who's gone all gray, I'm sort of moved.
One of the most incredible.
Yeah. Why am I not going gray? What's going on with my fucking hair?
I don't know. You seem too calm. You should try to find more things to get stressed out about in your life.
I'm getting a lot of grays.
My dad went gray very young.
I'd love to go gray.
My dad was like one of those guys, went gray in like his early 30s or whatever, and it was kind of always his look.
Yeah.
And so I was always like, I bet that happens to me. And instead, I'm always stressed
Brown
out.
as
You hear me
hell.
on this
I
show,
know.
heard me melting down about talking about Subway games just now. Where's my gray hair? I have a little in the beard.
A little, yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I had an old
Again,
roommate
no sympathy for Sims.
who had
Doesn't have a Subway game, doesn't have gray hair, no one cares.
I have a friend who, an old roommate who had the streak, the like Bride of Frankenstein
Fucking
streak, which I'm
rogue.
always like, it's crazy. Oh, rogue, sure.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan. I think gray hair rules.
Yeah.
And I think like not to speak ill of the late Tom Sizemore, someone who had a sterling reputation and never did anything bad.
Right. I mean, this show is filled with people where you're like, just don't scroll too far on their Wikipedia page.
Tons.
Kind of just try to hit the halfway mark.
Yeah.
here.
But he has like such unnaturally dyed hair in this. And I would say it doesn't feel like it doesn't fit for the character he's playing. But I'm just like, when you're looking at him existing in a show with a lot of people who have embraced their age,
Yeah.
you're like, all of them look better.
Yeah, I understand why McLaughlin's hair is dyed because he's sort of
Makes perfect
unstuck.
sense.
But
Yeah,
I do think he's also quite striking looking
I
now
was
with
gonna
all
say,
the gray
yes.
hair.
I mean, he
Totally.
has
He's a
very
handsome
much
guy.
figured out this act of his life
Right.
in that kind of Goldblum-y way of, right, like, like I am kind of at my best in my 60s
But I
all
do
of a sudden.
think that's the case for almost everyone. As you said, like it is. Let's talk about Knoxville for half a second
I mean,
here.
a great example.
Right? Like Jackass
Would probably fit on Twin Peaks, too.
he would be good.
Yeah.
Forever starts filming with him with the dyed hair, and then he's said that it was just like pandemic, filming shut down, stop touching it up. And then we restarted filming, and I was like, fuck it, what if I just don't re-dye it? And all of us are just like, yeah, this is amazing. This is exactly how you should look.
I mean, Forever is so good in part because it's about like the aging body
Yeah.
and what the body can handle.
Yes.
That movie's amazing.
Yeah, it rules.
So right, we have Richard. Episode 10 is a lot of Richard, not Richard. Sorry, no, yeah, it is Richard.
Yeah, Richard.
tearing through. Right, so first him harassing Miriam, then him going to his mother's house, knocking Johnny to the floor, basically, stealing her shit. His grandmother, sorry, not his mother. So you got a lot of that. You have Albert goes on a date with Jane Addams. That's fun.
Love. Talk about gray hair. Hottie.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
She's so good on The Idol. I'm not lying, but we don't have to get
She
into
was one of the
Believe
better
it if you
parts
say it.
of the Idol, right? I do remember at the time people were like, yeah, Jane Addams is fun, and there's someone else that's kind of fun on it, right?
Azaria.
Who?
Hank Azaria?
Oh, Hank. Oh, he's in it?
Yeah.
Is that who I'm thinking of that people kind of praised? Yeah, I guess it must have been. I'm looking at this cast list. Yeah, Troye Sivan.
Oh, well, Divine Joy Randolph.
Oh,
good
was
on
she
there.
good? Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, she and Hank Azaria and Jane Addams are like her
Right,
team.
they're the managers who are like, stop fucking The Weeknd.
Yeah,
and
they're
Lily
like-
Rose Depp is like slow motion smoking a cigarette or whatever she does.
I thought Troye Sivan was kind of good on it.
I'll never watch it.
Yeah, me neither.
Definitely don't. But it lingers in the mind, like few else.
But that's a very fun character, the Jane Addams medical examiner character. Like
Yeah.
that's a great example
Her
of a
puns.
Twin Peaks: The Return character where you're like, this is literally just a dusting of cinnamon, right? Like it's not pivotal to anything, but we
But yeah,
have found a
she's-
great role for a great actor
She's
here.
in it a lot.
She is.
And Miguel is just so good. I
Yeah.
just think, even in the original episodes, one of my favorites. I always love, in any kind of weird or supernatural shit, the one character who's like, this is so weird, this is so stupid,
Right.
who's just the obvious cynic. I think it's just always appealing, and he's so good at it. And I'm so moved by him because he's no longer alive.
Yes. And he's just one of my favorite characters in the show generally.
I'm trying to see if I can find the quote about it, but he was very sick by this point. He was also a regular on one of the NCIS shows, maybe New Orleans.
Really?
L.A.
Just will always make me laugh.
But like shot, I want to
Just
say...
LA.
Yeah.
Like what were anyway, sorry, go on. Yes.
He shot his final episode like a week before he passed away. He was one of those guys who insisted on like still working until the very end because he needed to like not to feel like he was still, engaged with something.
Right.
And they just talk about like, you can find these quotes that I cannot find right now of like cast and crew from NCIS LA where they just kept on trying to like write around him and be like, let's lighten his workload because he's not doing well. And he was just like, no, I got to do this. And would come in and was just like the consummate fucking pro and would give his all and like nail it in one take. And then he'd like step off and they'd be like, he is in such an astonishing amount of pain right now.
Mm.
And it is one of those things of like, there is such an innate, I don't know. There is this like weird profound humanity to this character who is not given a ton of like emotionality.
Mhm.
And it's obviously like even more weight now that we've like lost him.
But like then, yeah, Albert is a workaholic.
Yes.
He's not empathetic. The whole original clash that he has with Cooper is that he shows up and he's like, I fucking hate this town. Everyone's a bumpkin. Everything's so slow. And Cooper's like, I love it here. It's it's re-energizing me. And like, that's their kind of fundamental.
There is something to, I'm not saying it's a metatextual thing. I think it's like the weird like nature of on-camera acting. There is something that is being transferred from the amount of effort it takes Miguel Ferrer to just like stand at this point in his life and to like look at people that lends it like such a weight when so much of his performance is like standing and nodding.
Right.
It is done with like such depth of like this guy really wants to be here and these actions take a lot out of him as minimal as they might seem.
Right.
It lends some sense of import.
And I don't think this is, I guess I don't know where it goes any more than
Yeah.
you do, but seeing that character start to come around.
Right.
Yeah.
Start
And
to
he's
open up a
never-
little bit.
He's never going to sort of be like, I assume, like full force sort of believer
Mhm.
kook, but even these little kind of realization moments feel quite moving, all
Yes.
considered too.
Yeah.
It's a great actor.
Because that's what aging
Incredible
is
actor.
also.
That's yeah. Right. But
And
the
that's
other
why we should all go gray. That's why you shouldn't fight it.
the other big thing in episode 10, right, is like the sort of the chain of events of like Patrick Fischler tells Tom Sizemore, you need to remove Dougie.
Right.
And so Tom Sizemore tries to convince the Mitchum brothers, like, he's your problem.
Yes.
Like, to try and solve the problem for him,
Mhm.
right? We also
But meanwhile, Dougie's boss, the boxer, what's his name? I'm realizing like 40% of these Twin Peaks episodes is me just going, what's his name again?
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Bash.
Right. I don't remember which episode it's introduced in, but he like gives credit to Dougie through his weird doodlings, pointing his attention to the thread
Yes.
of where the money is going,
Right.
which would have ruined the company if they had not taken insurance policy out against the insurance policy. So actually, thanks to Dougie, everyone has ended up richer.
Everyone's in great shape. Right.
No one's in trouble, but
Right.
you have this sort of tension of like, well, knowing Dougie cannot really string together a sentence. Will he be able to explain this to Jim Belushi in time to not be shot?
Because Jim Belushi doesn't seem like a patient person.
No.
Yes. End of the episode is Rebecca Del Rio performing, of course, from Mulholland Drive a long time. All right, but so part 11.
With Moby.
Oh, Moby's there?
I was wondering if
I
it
said
was
that's
him.
Moby.
Yeah.
I
He's
clocked
right.
Guitar
Moby.
over her shoulder.
He's the
Yeah.
guitarist.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I never clocked that. You've worked with Moby. Should we not talk about that? We can cut that out.
Worked with
Yeah,
Moby? Should we not
worked.
talk-
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about it, but
Okay.
I worked with Moby on something.
Interesting.
Was he nice?
Yeah, he was nice.
Mhm.
He was pretty. Yeah, he was nice.
Cool.
Is he a like vegan?
I would have heard about it by now.
It never came up sort of in discussion, but he has these big tattoos.
Right. I was going to say.
Remember when
If you talked
Eminem?
less to his face and more to his forearms, you might have gotten an answer.
Yeah.
Remember when Eminem? It's Without Me, I think, right? Like, you know, he releases Without Me.
David, you're looking at me.
And it's like, oh, Eminem's back. He's uncorking like all his comic
Right.
stuff, and he's like, and he fucking rags on Moby in this one, and
For
you're kind of
doing
like,
yoga.
Moby, like
Yeah.
Eminem's. That's like the softest target imaginable.
In
Like that's the
retrospect,
best he can do. Is
some of his-
nobody listens to techno.
Some of his targets are weird. And like him drilling down on Chris Kirkpatrick.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
And I'm like, is it just truly that it's a good rhyme?
it probably
It must
was.
be.
Right.
Yeah.
I just remember like there's like an attack on Moby in the music video, like a fake Moby. And it just felt like even to teen me in 2004, I was like, I don't think anyone's really worried about Moby like
No.
doing anything right now. Like,
that's like when
he's
Eminem-
not on your corner.
When Eminem briefly announced he was retiring at like 33, you were like, yeah, after the Moby thing, maybe you do need a fucking breathe. It feels like the tank's a little empty.
Okay, so yeah, in part 11, we got more of the Caleb Laundry Bag Amanda Seyfried drama. It's like
Yes.
all these Twin Peaks characters have or not, but like a lot of these Twin Peaks characters have had kids who are just like disasters,
Right.
right? It's like,
Shelley and Bobby have Becky.
it's Becky and Richard, and so, like it's just, but it's like
Well, you start the episode out,
in the 90s,
Yeah.
they were all these troubled teens or whatever, but
but they're like soap opera troubled teens versus these being like bad people.
They're perpetuating all the worst parts of their parents
Right. Like,
or their grandparents even. I feel like
Right.
Richard Horne is more of a Richard Bamer.
because the Twin Peaks teens are like Grease Rebel Without a Cause teens.
right. They're troubled teens of a prior youth, and now all these teens, 20-somethings, whatever they are, it's like this nasty modern kind of like
Right.
depraved, you know, listless youth, like with no jobs and no prospects, and they're like living and stealing from each other and like on drugs, and it's like it just feels more like real
Yes.
or in your face, even though in Twin Peaks there was a lot of the same problems are you know being presented in soapier ways.
The Bobby Shelley conversation with Amanda Seyfried, where they're like trying to put like a wall down and be like, you have to fucking stop it with this guy. And she's alternating constantly between like, I love him and I hate him. Don't worry, I never want to talk to him again. Feels like, yes, not this like heightened dramatic version
yeah.
of a like doomed romance. It is like, oh, this is like a pretty uncomfortable look at someone caught in an abusive relationship with a dangerous person.
Some of that just feels like a different way in which we talk about young people on TV now, though, also. Like, we don't really
That's right.
have those kind of like soapy characters anymore. And I think the concept
Yeah.
even of like a CW teen show is very different
Is
now.
striving for a
than-
great sense of psychological realism than it.
or going
Yeah.
like whole hog fantasy like history thing, but is
Uh-huh.
no longer doing like One Tree Hill or like Everwood or
How much
whatever.
of that do you think is like a fear of the quote unquote insensitive portrayal? That like a lot of those types of shows were baked around these big dramatic arcs of things that are treated not like insensitively, but are treated broadly, versus now people wanting to be like, it's like a real snapshot of what these things are like. Even in the sort of broadest versions of those shows, people want credit for this is an accurate representation.
Yeah, I think it's less about sensitivity and more just like people's imaginations are so much smaller. and are not willing, and everyone takes everything so literally.
Yeah.
I feel, and some of those things were great because they were these like exaggerations, which now like our brains can't process. Whereas
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you see like I'm just, whatever my Twitter feed is now, I'm always seeing old clips from Glee, and people are like, this is crazy, this was on the air. And it felt a little crazy at the time, but it was way closer to what shows were like back then than what they are now.
Glee had almost a throwback element where it felt like they were always doing very special episodes and all that, but just about more lurid stuff. In a way, right? Glee had this frankness to some of the very special episodes that was more contemporary.
Sure.
It's not really a defense of Glee, which is not a show I ever loved.
You weren't a Gleek?
I was not a Gleek, but it did, for a minute there, it was basically like, can we do like Friday Night Lights with songs, right? Like,
Yes,
can we
yeah,
have
yeah,
this
yeah.
sort of high intensity, real teen shit drama, but also it's like a silly musical with jokes and Jane
now
Lynch
it's
is
Euphoria,
there.
know?
And now it's Euphoria, which is just
Right.
everyone all the time screaming like, this is happening to me! Like, and you're just like, can you all shut up? Like, be quiet.
Even, like thinking of shit like the fucking Max Gossip Girl reboot and the creators coming out and being like, don't worry, we're really going to examine privilege head on.
Right.
And I'm like, what is the point?
Mm-hmm.
But the OC Gossip Girl era of aspirational shows where you're like, don't you want to be part of this world, but also explore the dark side?
Yes.
Now that's whatever and can't be done in a way that doesn't feel corny. What?
You know what Twin Peaks season 1 reminds me of sometimes?
What?
Veronica Mars, which was a great example.
Veronica Mars.
Veronica Mars.
Right.
Bobby
And,
is
like,
very Logan Eccles.
Yes, Veronica
Great
Mars is 100%. What's his name? Matchbox 20.
Rob
Thomas.
Thomas.
Rob Thomas. I mean, a different guy, but he has the same name. The creator of Veronica Mars. Rob Thomas being like, right, can I make a kind of noir-y, Twin Peaks-y teen show? He succeeded for a while, kind of fell off the rails. I think season 3 of Veronica Mars is really bad, but like
I remember 4 being an
defensible.
uptick.
Well, no, 4 is, there's only 3 seasons before the revival. Yeah. Yes.
Why did I think?
And then the movie.
Yeah.
It had a bunch of
3 is the one that ends with her signing up for the academy?
Yeah.
Taking
Yeah.
the test? Okay.
where they kind of are trying to pivot to maybe a reboot-ish season 4, and then
Maybe
it just
when I
got
said 4
canceled.
was an uptick, it's the 4 I wrote in my head.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And then Riverdale,
Yeah.
which I never watched much of, that felt like where I'm like, okay, we're making copies of copies at this point. Because Riverdale is like, what if Archie was Twin Peaks? And you're
Right.
like, what if? And they're like, by episode 3, they're like, Archie has magic powers. And I'm like, okay, well, you've kind of gone beyond Twin Peaks at this point.
But that's the thing. There's also the weird effect of that being like, can you only get away with that level of like operatic storytelling if you're couching it in the sort of like irony of, isn't it funny we're doing this with Archie?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like I've referenced this before, and I was talking about this with someone recently, and it caused me to like pull back up the file. But there was the fully buried, announced, shot, and never released
Oh.
Diablo Cody Powerpuff Girl show for CW.
Mm-hmm.
That was very much them trying to do the same
Oh,
thing.
I thought you were going to talk about the Heathers that got canceled also.
No, I didn't ever watch that.
Well,
Oh, you didn't want to? The buzz was so good. Sorry.
How was it?
I didn't watch it.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. The Powerpuff Girls show felt like an absolute breaking point of them being like, it somehow became Euphoria level shit in Powerpuff Girls.
Right.
And trying to make the like electricity off the tension of, you think these characters are innocent and we're making them do insane, like ecstatic things. And that felt like a cultural crash moment that happened
We have to
quietly
stop
in
rebooting.
shadows.
Right.
Yeah.
We must make something new. Veronica Mars, God bless it. Good show. To be clear, I generally love Veronica Mars. That was new. Yes, it was using old tropes or whatever, like all new, stuff.
Mhm.
Do that again.
Yeah.
Come on. Chop, chop.
Yeah, Ben, do that again.
Oh, I'm seeing here that broadcast television is dead. So
Okay.
unfortunately.
No, it's kind of back though.
Is it?
Dr. Odyssey.
Should I watch that? What is that?
It's so cool. What if you were a doctor on a boat? Joshua Jackson?
Whoa. My interest jumped up 100%.
Did you
said
not know?
Joshua. No, I don't know
He's
anything
not.
right
he's
now.
the titular
Don
Odyssey.
Johnson.
But Don Johnson's the captain of
He's
the
the
boat,
captain
right.
of the boat.
And who else?
I can see
His
it. I just put
name
a,
is Odyssey, though.
no, the
No.
boat
The
is
boat's
the
Odyssey.
Odyssey.
He's
I'm
the
seeing
doctor
here.
He's the doctor on the
Odyssey.
boat.
Fuck. Oh, but that's such a good idea for a show. Oh,
It's
God,
like
but
how
it's
they
Ryan
called
Murphy.
him
It's
Dr.
always
House
him.
because he lived in a house. They call this guy Dr. Odyssey because he lives on the Odyssey. Does that joke even make any sense?
I liked
Fran,
it.
who else
Yeah.
is on Dr. Odyssey? No one laughed.
Apparently, Pippa Sue, Philippa Sue, love her,
Okay.
and Don Johnson, as you
Well, there's
mentioned.
that clip going around of Caperlamp being poisoned by a smoothie made by Margaret Cho. And
Okay.
that's like one of many things that Dr. Odyssey has to deal with.
Wait, that happens on Dr. Odyssey?
Yeah, Caperlamp gets poisoned.
By Margaret Cho?
Smoothie.
On Dr. Odyssey?
There's something in the smoothie.
What's in there?
I don't know. I think it's making her break out in hives.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. I'll watch it. I'll tune in tomorrow.
I don't watch any of the like 911 Lone Star spinoffs, but my parents watch all those.
I see clips occasionally from Twitter.
Yes, me
Yes.
too. But if you want to know where any lost alumni is, they've shown up on that
Yes.
show. It's just all lost alumni
I
That's
feel like
great.
I saw a clip of Gina Torres yelling at a young girl who had a
with a
harmonica.
harmonica in her mouth. Yeah,
That's one of the more
That was crazy.
insane things I have
This is what I mean
ever
about
seen.
broadcast
They were like,
TV.
time to get the Vaseline.
They
Right.
still have to fill those hours.
Yes.
And there's still actors who
That's-
want to make money doing it and so on.
That's
And so
why I'm like,
there's
maybe
just-
it's back.
it's like just stealth back, but nobody's talking about it really. And then once in a while, people will be like, do you know there's like harmonicas getting stuck in mouths?
Dude, the two of you, Ben and David, know what Harmonica Girl looks like.
No.
Because it's like
It's really crazy.
it's like Killer Clowns from Outer Space makeup. Like it is so
That looks good.
And Gina Torres is having like an intense emotional
Well, and she's
conversation.
breathing out through the harmonica.
Right,
and
so
her
it's
friend
like-
is translating. Like her
Right.
friend can understand what she's saying through the harmonica, which
Right.
is what's crazy.
Right. Her friend is going like, she's saying that her mouth hurts.
And then there's all these people in the replies on Twitter being like, "This would never happen."
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
you
think
know,
it
that wouldn't
could.
happen. You think, but you're like, I don't believe you. On Twin Peaks, to get us back to that, Hastings, Matthew Lillard, right, takes everyone to see like to the forest,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like the woods.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I saw Major Briggs here. I saw his head.
Mm-hmm. Just the head.
Heads
Right?
at Cooper.
Yeah.
And it said Cooper.
Mhm.
And this is where Gordon Cole, played by David Lynch. Do you enjoy that character, Fran?
You know, in original, no. In The Return, yes.
I kind of agree with you. In original, you're kind of like, he's having fun, but this is a little much.
Yeah.
And then in this season, in The Return, he's you really need him. Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of the guy you're grabbing onto.
He's steering the ship more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like him in The Return. Yeah. And he sees a spiral in the sky,
Yeah.
a vortex.
That's right. He sees this sort of very Lynchian image of this crazy
Albert
vortex. Yes.
Seemingly sees it for the first time.
And sort
He
of
has
yanks
that-
him out of the way. Right.
it would be
yes.
scary if you saw that for real.
Yeah.
He's good at acting.
David
Yeah.
Lynch.
Yeah.
He is
Yes.
kind of.
I mean, I watched the fucking Fableman scene maybe once every other week.
Oh, it's
I
awesome.
watch it all the time.
It is
It's
so
so good.
compelling. Yeah.
It's one of those things where you're like, that anyone had any other idea for this scene is unimaginable to me. Like this was always meant to exist.
I feel like Spielberg hasn't said who it was, but that he had someone else he was going to offer it to. And then it was fucking what's his name? Kushner's husband.
Mark Harris?
Mark Harris. Mark Harris was the one,
Right.
according to Mark Harris, and I believe him,
Yeah.
who suggested David Lynch initially, and it was a brilliant
That he was
suggestion.
like, you know,
right.
you should cast as Ford, and he was like, I have someone in mind. And he said David Lynch, and then Spielberg was like, God fucking damn it.
Yes, and Lynch was the one who had to be talked into it,
Right,
Because
with a
everyone
bag of
else was like,
Cheetos.
that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But yes, and then after they see this vortex, Matthew Lillard comes down with a terrible case of head explosion.
Yes.
Yes,
It looks like he was killed by the same thing that killed
the woodsman.
Oh, right. No, but I'm saying the wound looks like the same kind of wound that the people in the room with the glass box had.
Oh,
Like the way,
Interesting.
the
Yep.
trajectory and the way that he was
So
like,
maybe you're
cut.
right.
But
Yeah.
you're saying internally the logic is that the woodsmen are who have killed him? David?
No, I'm not
No.
sure that
I mean,
that
we see
is
them
true.
encroaching
Yes.
and get
But
and
that
in
is
the car,
That
right?
is how I always took it. Is
Yeah.
that we're seeing sort of an invisible version of that, right? Like
Sure.
like where we've seen the woodsman in episode 8 essentially crush people.
Mhm.
We're basically seeing that again, except this time we don't see the woodsman, and that's how it would look to most people: is someone's head just mysteriously going splat.
Got
What
it.
do you guys make of the woodsman?
Well, we talked about them a fair amount on episode 8.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying we
Okay.
can't talk about
All
them
right, I'll
anymore.
listen to it.
Do you like their look?
Scary.
How do you feel about Soot?
Soot?
In general.
As far as like a look.
Not crazy about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Um,
Kind of dirty, no?
Wow. I mean, because I'm toying with the idea of introducing Soot into my day-to-day.
Don't you think you'd get uncomfortable, though? Don't you think
you would
you'd
probably
be-
annoy people by tracking soot all over wherever you went?
True. Yeah.
the pig pen effect?
On what? Yeah. On your skin?
Pigpen always
On
seems
your
to kind
clothes?
of
Both.
maintain his internal atmosphere without disrupting others.
You know what? You're right.
Like as much as Pigpen is filthy or whatever, he doesn't really mess with anyone.
This is a great question. Does Pigpen
Get things dirty.
leave residue on his surroundings,
I don't know. He's a great character.
or is he a self-contained? Well, he's a rich character.
He is a rich, but that's the whole thing with Peanuts, where you're like, this 6-year-old that Charles Schultz came up with is a rich character.
Yes.
Times at 40.
Yes,
He's wealthy?
Yeah.
He's rich as balls.
he's kind of got that like trust fund kid thing where he's like, I don't know, I don't have money for ramen, but he's like really, he's loaded. But he's like, I can't afford
Secretly,
a
he has a
shower. And
trust
you're like,
fund.
afford a shower?
I mean, I think of the woodsmen as like agents or creatures of the Black Lodge or the other world, right?
Yeah.
Like they're malevolent, but they also don't feel like they have much of a personality. They just kind of like they're little
Like servants.
Yeah.
Yes, they're
Yeah.
little agents of Bob or agents of bad things or
Yeah,
whatever.
they're like minions.
Okay, I agree.
They are kind of like minions. I
They're
also
like dirty
think
little minions.
in the really lynchy way that would kind of just sound annoying when I say it, so I'm going to say it anyway. They're kind of just like electricity.
Okay, David, you
Yeah.
can't stay there. You gotta
like,
keep talking.
but like that's what Lynch is often just sort of doing, where he's like, electricity. And you're like, what do you mean? He's like, that's all I have for you on like what's creating a force or, what's driving the plot forward or whatever,
Mhm.
and like how he always wanted to make that movie, Jesus, Ronnie Rocket.
Yes.
And it's like, well, what's it about? It's like electricity. Like,
Sure.
and like, that's what the woodsmen are. Like, do they have like a person, are they like, I want to kill Matthew Lillard now because he's been revealing our secrets? No, it's just kind of like Lillard opened up energy from this other dimension and it's just kind of rushing at him and he can't take it anymore. And it's the end of him.
But also, so much of this show is like these forces are unleashed because of the man-made and technology and like the disruption of nature,
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about The Leftovers does that crazy flashback to like cave people. And I was thinking about how this doesn't need to go that far back
Mhm.
to explore a certain kind of modern evil, that it's actually pretty recent
Yes.
and otherwise completely unchangeable.
Yeah.
What's important is that Matthew Lillard is gone.
Mhm.
We salute his service,
Yeah, great work.
right?
Yeah. I said RAP.
Okay, so what else we got? We got we got a lot of this drama with Bobby and Shelley and Becky trying to figure out like how do we solve Becky's problem husband and all this stuff
Mhm.
at the Double R Diner. We've got
You have the scene with the woman in the car that we've talked about
Oh, it's
Yes.
so
and
scary.
the kid vomiting. Yeah.
How about Hawk and Frank looking at the map together?
looking at the map together.
That's so fun.
The weird symbols.
I feel like these episodes, the scenes start becoming really like,
Overwhelming.
yeah, they just play for a really long time in a way that now that I'm getting used to the rhythm of the show, I'm really enjoying how long and luxurious they're just going on forever. It feels like. Does anyone else start clicking in at this point with that?
Yes. I
Yeah.
also find Frank such a like calming like presence that I want to be in his presence as much as possible. I like how no bullshit he is when, Hawk is like, this represents electricity. The corn represents sustenance. And Frank's like, okay. Like not like, well, come on, Hawk. Or, like just the disarming acceptance of both Truman brothers is always
Sure.
very nice for me.
But back to, this point of like the natural versus the man-made, or like man's trying to impose its will upon the natural order and whatever. Like Hawk, as the show goes on, having more and more of the answers, and those answers coming from a sense of passed down tradition of a culture that was perhaps more attuned,
Right.
that wasn't fighting against things, but was able to like coexist with an understanding. And now you have like people like Matthew Lillard who's like trying to break the barrier. like breach the membrane, and then as a result gets his fucking head blown off.
Gets exploded.
Right. Has people's fucking exquisite corpsing bodies across each other and everything.
Have you guys talked much about Chad? I think it's interesting that he brought in sort of a cop who's bad.
Yes,
this time.
that we sort of touched on it, that there's our old friends at the sheriff's department who we love to see, and then there's this other element, this other office basically of like regular ass shit cops,
right? Like cynical,
who are somewhat malevolent and cynical, right? Yeah, and hate to hear about the old days and like have any empathy for whatever happened back with Laura Palmer or whatever, anything like that. And yeah, Chad is another great Chad Broxford. Great. I don't know the actor, John Puricello.
He was on the last season of Barry as well and was like incredibly good.
Who was he in that? I did watch that.
He plays one of the cops investigating the former partner. I want to say Henry Winkler's girlfriend. It's him and like Sarah Burns. Yeah.
He's just a great kind of shifty guy.
Yes.
I don't know. What do you think, Fran?
He's awesome. I like that we have this separation between the cops of yesteryear and the ones of today.
Right.
And feels like it's like, I don't know, addressing something a little more modern about the justice system without having to be like acknowledging what police do. I don't know.
Even in the 90s, like Twin Peaks was depicting a like Mayberry police department.
Completely.
Like it's not just that it was like an older school of policing. It's like an older school of television policing.
Right.
Like Twin Peaks is airing at a time where like, there is the modern cop show that is more hard-edged. And here's like a drama with this sort of like throwback, more innocent, benevolent cop force.
Yeah.
And now you're not getting like, like the Shield level, like edgy pay cable cop. You're getting just like the kind of like worst, cynical, mundane, arrogant, ineffectual. Yeah.
I like that their dispatcher, we get that scene of just her taking all the 911 calls. And just being like, what's your location? What's your location?
Yes.
As if to say that, like, while these guys were spiraling about Laura Palmer, there were just a bunch of other people having to deal with everything else.
Yes. Episode 11 ends with the showdown in the desert, basically.
Yes, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Right, but the big set piece is the Mitchum brothers taking Dougie to the desert, and
Belushi being overcome,
realizing he is not their enemy.
With the mirroring of a dream that allows him to slow things down and investigate more thoroughly, find the pie in the box, find the check, which was just on his person. Like, that's the best part, is like they would have shot him dead and then found the check afterwards. It's only because they decide to frisk him. He was never going to know to offer the check up.
Right.
And then it takes him to like out for drinks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the
and the woman who he
the slot addict, Linda Porter, who's a great old lady actor.
Yeah,
she's so good.
I love her. She's always funny. I feel like she's in a billion shows and movies as an old lady. But this is why you cast Belushi, because he can do the turn from like hulking and a little intimidating to like Dougie, like so well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Fran, like, but Chicago guy,
well, I was going to say
that's in the bag for him.
Of course. I was like, that's a classic Midwestern attitude.
He's a real pierogi.
I basically never like funny Jim Belushi and always like dramatic Jim Belushi.
I would agree with that.
Like, it's not even like, oh, he's been good a surprising number of times. I'm like, I think like he's incredible in Thief.
Yes,
he's great in this.
Yeah.
He's great in The Ghostwriter.
Yes, he is.
And his one fucking scene where you're like, who the hell is that? I feel like anytime he shows up in this kind of role, you're like, well, why? And
why doesn't this happen more often?
He talks about that he always intended to be a dramatic actor, and that when he went to comedy, like John was disappointed, and then after John's death, people were like, "Can you be the new Belushi?" There is something that kind of makes sense of like what didn't totally click with him comedically is maybe a reflection of him slightly being pushed into a slot.
Well, is the problem with comedy Belushi exactly that he was essentially being put into fairly lackluster comedy projects?
Fairly is even generous.
Right. Out of a sort of like, well, we need somebody.
Yeah.
The big guys don't want to do this.
Right.
But you kind of have and like, because it's like, is Jim Belushi unfunny? No, he's fine.
He's
Yes.
good humored, I think,
Right.
but I don't think he ever slotted neatly into like a comedic trope
No,
of like
It's like,
Yes.
like, okay, Jim Belushi's bad in K9. I'm just kind of like, is Jim Belushi the problem here? Or was
Right.
the,
We
the
were-
problems had taken root long before Jim Belushi started opening
we
his
were
mouth.
giving him our worst, and he was not elevating.
right,
He
right.
could never compare to his brother.
Yes.
Well, there's
He would
obviously
never
that.
be able to live up to
If he was called Jim Chicago,
Well, it's an interesting
and it was
name.
just like, okay, there's a big guy who has a mustache sometimes and sometimes
Yeah.
doesn't, and he plays like a guy who's like kind of like a cup of coffee, and he's like, hey,
Yeah.
and I might then be just like, yeah, I love that guy, that Chicago character actor guy, I love that guy. The fact that he's called Jim Belushi, if he was even called Ralph Belushi, then it's another J.
Yeah.
Is really working against him to the point that you're like, did someone spell John's name wrong? Oh no, John had already died, and this movie stars Jim Belushi. Like, it's like the experience of watching a Jim Belushi movie.
Salvador's another one.
Uh,
The Oliver Stone movie. He's incredibly good in.
God, I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Yeah.
Incredible, James Woods.
Okay, we should wrap up on episode 11. I just want to say one thing we got to call out. That's a really good bit that I think might even become a classic bit for me in my rotation of classic bits is when they keep having Dougie do a toast and he just keeps reaching
it's so
for
good.
the glass. I love that, and I'm going to have to integrate
It's a good bit.
so good.
Dougie's got great bits. But yes, this ends with a musical performance of Piano Man at the Bar rather than Roadhouse.
Yes. Which is great. All right. Part 12. Yes. Part 12 is kind of the Diane episode, right? Where there's like more probing into what is going on with her. So what do we have? Here begins with inducting Tammy, Agent Tammy Preston, into the Blue Rose Club, right? Those sort of
task
long,
force.
Yes. Which is basically just Twin Peaks' X-Files. It's like, right, it's like the FBI, if there's a case that's weird, it kind of gets secretly moved over to the Blue Rose people. Who
And
are
they're
trying
former UFO people.
Right. And they have, they ask her and she says, let's rock, which is, of course, classic catchphrase from Twin Peaks. What do you guys think? Great? Good. Okay. Now.
Oh, really cooking with gas here conversationally.
Well, what do you guys think?
Yeah, sure.
She's such a weird character to me.
I can't figure out what this is.
Well,
and
the fact that she's introduced with everyone being like, David,
Yes.
you're so horny, introducing this character. Like on screen, they're saying that.
Right. That I'm
and then she
still,
spends
like-
the whole show being like, I'm here too, like with a notebook.
Yes.
and
taking notes
walking,
and stuff.
walking all sexy.
Right. Yeah.
I have no read on her for that exact reason, where I'm just like, what are we doing here if you've like called out from the very beginning how this looks? Yeah, but yeah, sure.
It's beyond me. She's not making anything worse,
No.
but neutral. Here's my thought about Diane.
Go ahead.
She's got the Taylor Swift nails,
Please elaborate on that.
all different colors.
Is that a Taylor?
Is that Taylor Swift?
She started doing it, I think, around the Lover era,
Okay.
and it's consistently sort of what her nails look like. She keeps her nails very short
Mm.
Sure.
because she has to play guitar.
Yeah.
And they're usually all different colors. So I do wonder, this is pre-Lover.
I
Twin
was going
Peaks:
to
The
say,
Return.
what Taylor era are we in around 2016, 2017?
Well, we're post-Reputation, pre-Lover, which is when she starts to do those nails.
So you're saying that Taylor Swift was ripping off Diane from Twin Peaks when she did that?
It's an interesting take. It's an interesting take. Yeah.
My 2 cents. I just always think that. I'm like, she's got the Swift nails.
So we also early on, and we'll talk more about Diane, pretty much we've seen Sarah Palmer like watching TV.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But this is like our first interaction with Sarah Palmer, right? Like talking to people. She's yelling about jerky at the supermarket and basically just kind of being like, remember how I had a really spooky, awful vibe in the original Twin Peaks? Like that was fucking Barney the dinosaur compared to like what I'm like now.
She's not doing great.
Right. I have just like festered in the worst direction.
There's
since
no
then.
like horse to distract her anymore.
And I think the best way
Yeah.
to think about her is like, whatever poison has been in
Yes.
her since she was a kid, because
Yeah.
she's the kid in episode 8 is sort of is what's widely assumed who the creature crawls into the mouth of, has just become like unspeakable.
Yeah.
Right.
It's her and the woman honking the car, where I'm just like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yes.
wish I wasn't watching this. And the sort of reintroduction of her watching the lions
Yes.
kill that animal is like maybe the worst thing I've
And-
seen in this, where I was like,
The thing
Maybe I
about
can't
Twin
get through
Peaks is the return is it can be so funny, it can be so delightful, and then it can have sequences like that, or like Richard Horne running over a kid, and then
Profoundly
the show
upsetting.
not just cutting away from it, but like
Right.
being like, we're sticking with this.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I don't know if I ever want to watch more of this.
Phil was saying, he's like, my memory of watching that at the time was that it was mostly all really nice. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? But he was like, he had remembered all the, like, he's like, oh, Harry Dean Stanton stuff is so great.
Yeah.
And seeing Dern in there is so great. And Dougie is so great. And then it's like, well, yeah, but then every other scene is like the worst thing I've ever.
Tremendous amount of suffering.
Yeah, had
and
to
evil.
sit through
Yeah.
and consider
Yeah.
in a real way.
Right. We have, the next thing is, Frank sitting down with with Ben and being like, so FYI, Richard is
The most evil
your grandson
person.
is a homicidal maniac. And Ben being like, fuck yeah. All
Ben
right.
is so evil in the first season. And
Yes,
now
he
when
is.
he's even modestly inconvenienced, I'm like, leave him alone. He's suffered enough.
But I really think Ben's plotline in The Return, which is not, not a lot is happening with him. He doesn't really get punished for the terrible, terrible things he does in Twin Peaks. Was he ever kind of brought to justice for
No.
running drug smuggling and prostitution
Just
rings
sits
and
still atop
abusing young
his
women
kingdom.
probably?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he's just still there.
Yeah.
He's really bummed out, clearly.
Yeah.
There's this kind of ambient, depression or evil around him to the point that he can almost hear it and is asking Ashley Judd if she hears it too.
I think that's a kind of hollowness that tends to set in with guys like this, though, where
Yeah.
people who
Like
Yeah.
you're just still alive.
right in middle age, they get some electricity with what but from the crimes they're able to commit and the power they're able to accrue, and then it's decades later, it's like, okay, so I got away with it.
Right.
What do I fucking do now?
Yeah, but there's nothing to be gained from
Right.
getting away with it. You just rot at age.
Yes.
And I just love it. I just love that that's sort of what the show does with him. And of course that, yes, I mean, Richard is the ultimate, punishment for him in a way of you've only begotten pure evil.
There's something for me that still does not compute about how much of the original West Side Story cast is still alive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And part of it's probably that Natalie Wood died very young, but knowing the cast members who died in between the original series and this, and the people who died in between this and now, and the fact that Richard Bamer's still alive. I don't know if it's that I always think that West Side Story is older than it is, although it's certainly not new.
It's pretty old.
And part of it was that the actors were all so young in it.
Right.
But it is a lot of them have lived very long, robust lives.
Yeah. They're bolstered by being in a really good movie.
It gave them lifeblood.
Yeah.
It's George Chakiris.
George Chakiris is still with us at
Right.
the age of 90.
Right. Rita Moreno's 94?
She's 92.
92?
Crushing it, obviously.
Bamer's 90?
Russ Tamblyn is 89 and Bamer is 86, a baby.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
How old was he in the movie?
Gonna have to do some math here. He would have been about 21, 22.
Wild.
Math crave.
But yes, I just think Ben's plot line is one of the cleverest uses of the legacy impact of this show. This is all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Should we talk about Audrey?
Yeah. So it's part 12 of 18,
Mhm.
correct?
That Audrey comes in.
Audrey is suddenly introduced.
Mhm.
Sherilyn Fenn, big actress.
Yeah.
On the original show.
Humongous character.
Big character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tied up in a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She is married to one of the seven dwarfs
Uh-huh.
or whatever. She's
Sleepy.
stuck with this small, bald kind of accountant guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Played-
he's sleepy.
And he's sleepy. Played
They
by... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, they seem to have a terrible marriage of convenience where there has been no passion between them in decades. And he's like, why are you mad at me? And she's openly kind of taunting him with, who is Billy? Do we know who Billy is? She keeps saying, I'm in love with Billy. I'm fucking Billy.
So this is the whole thing with the Audrey plot. Right?
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. We don't know what she's talking about. She refers to Billy. Billy, not to spoil, we never meet Billy.
Okay.
We don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
We don't really understand who Charlie is.
Yeah.
Like, we know that he's her accountant and that they got married for some reason. But I don't want to get too much into Audrey's total arc on this show. But I do feel like this is one of the more representational. Like, you have to like. This isn't quite reality.
Yeah, I'm a little
confused
by it. At the very
we
least,
were all confused. He also references calling. She also references calling Tina. That's another character we like never see or understand who it is.
Okay,
you know,
right? Tina's the woman. There, yeah.
You feel like you are. It's disassociating watching this scene, like being like, I don't. Have we seen Audrey before and I forgot about it?
Right.
Have we seen this character Charlie before and I forgot about it? What is this connected to?
Also, her performance style is wildly different. Like, this just feels like an almost unrecognizable character, other than the fact that she still looks like Sherilyn Fenn.
Yes.
You know, it's not just like circumstantial or like behavioral. It's like, I don't understand how this is the same person outside of like, I'm doing the math in my head of, are we supposed to fill in the gaps of there has been some sort of like Horne family, like power causing inner soul rot thing? Yes?
I don't want to tell you.
Okay. Well, then
I don't really want to get into it, but like I want to know what you guys thought of the scene.
I really didn't know what to make of it.
Same. I really liked when he said he was so sleepy because I was like, I mean, this was me earlier this year.
My brother and I would send pictures of Charlie to each other all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's just something like, imagine one day you woke up and you were just married to this sort of small man who's bald and has glasses and sits behind a desk, and you're just like ranting like an insane person to him, and he's just like, you know, like it feels like some kind of like little Kafka story or whatever.
Yes, I think he's giving like great.
Amazing. The guy's name is Clark Middleton. He is sadly dead. He died.
Oh, really?
He died, I think, of the West Nile virus. It's something very strange.
He died during 2020 of the West Nile virus.
Yes,
that is why.
Not of COVID. Like, I think he had some kind of arthritic thing, like that had, you know, he's slightly shorter. He's like 5'5" or something.
Yeah, but
I don't think that is why, like, that contributed to the West Nile thing. Like, he just, I don't know. I don't really know much about the West Nile virus.
He's in Kill Bill. I'm trying.
He is.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know who he's in.
He is. I want to say he's Michael Madsen's like right hand man when they're burying her. Yeah.
No. Yes, you're right. Yeah. No real memory of that scene.
Yeah. I mean, that's
it's kind of the worst plotline in Kill Bill.
No, I was gonna say that's my favorite moment.
Is it?
Her escaping.
Yeah.
I think it's the most triumphant part of Kill Bill.
I've seen Kill Bill Volume 1 20 times.
Yes.
And I think I've seen Volume 2 like twice.
They were both so seismic for me.
Right. For some reason, I haven't wanted to. I think 2 is more visceral in a way, or it's more emotional.
It's way more emotional.
Right. And that's why I wanted to visit it last night.
Right.
I should rewatch
and there's this like masterwork of narrative construction around the Bud segment that kind of feels like I don't know, a downswing, and then I think has this like incredible cathartic payoff.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, and I like the movie a lot.
Yeah.
I've never seen The Whole Bloody Affair.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
It's not. I feel like it's rarely viewable,
but it exists.
It does. It has been screened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, were you about to say something?
The Audrey scene.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thoughts on the Audrey scene?
It's like bad theater.
That's the thing. It's one of the only scenes in the show so far where I'm like, is this just not working? Not like there is a deliberate sense of like unusualness that is being cultivated that is out of touch with reality. But I'm like, is this scene actually failing at what it's trying to do, or do I just not understand what it's trying to do?
But it doesn't feel like necessarily out of left field for the character of Audrey to act like this.
It's just
because it reminded me
She's
of her
petulant
over the topness of
Right.
season 1.
Yes.
Like referencing all of these men, and you have to come to the bar with me and be my company. And I don't know, it feels still like it makes sense to me. It doesn't feel completely random.
There's a certain curdling, but it is bizarre when the show has held her back for this long, you know? And it's like, oh, this is the first time we're going to see this character in like decades.
Exactly. One of the last legacy characters to show up.
Right. And then the couple episodes leading up to this are connecting, like, okay, that's her son. That's right. The whole family's coming in and you're like, man, they've been holding back on Audrey. This is going to be meaningful. And then you have this 10-minute scene that feels interminable where I can't quite get what's going on.
And you're like caught in this loop where you're just like, can someone explain to me what's going on? And instead she's just having this circular conversation with this like stone wall of a person.
Who then takes a phone call.
Yes.
Right.
And we don't hear
And
the
he's
other
like,
side of
"What?
the
That's
conversation.
crazy."
Right. And then it's like, I'm not going to tell you what I heard. Which, let's say, like, right before this, if not immediately before this, but in the chunks before this, in this very episode, you have Cooper and Berenice Merlot.
Mhm.
Someone who I was so convinced was going to be a major star, and I feel like has weirdly kind of disappeared.
She's gorgeous.
She's also just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But this like kind of extended weird David Lynch comedy routine of like
Right.
behavior being drawn out in a sort of inexplicable way, which then goes into Alfred and I said Cooper.
Jane Addams. Yeah, you said Cole. You
Yes,
said Cooper,
Cole.
you meant Cole.
They're sort of like check in on each other and what's going on with Denise. They've been tracking her phone. They saw the Vegas text and whatever. But that conversation is going on with these like protracted silences.
Right.
Where it's very hard to read the energy of what's going on, but it all feels within Lynch's power.
You meant Diane, not Denise.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. Denise is David Duchovny's character.
There are too many names.
Yeah, there's a lot of names. It's a lot of
Yeah,
characters.
the show has a lot of characters. I want to say that.
The Audrey stuff almost felt like a scene from Invitation to Love when you would get those little snippets
Yeah.
earlier on. And it has that kind of almost classic soap opera scene, but then the longer it goes on,
Yes.
the more increasingly upsetting and unnerving it gets. And it makes me grateful that I was going to power through all of this over the summer when I was sick. And then people told me specifically not to watch The Return.
It might make your
while
brain go crazy. Yeah.
my
Doesn't
brain was
feel like
going crazy.
Something you want to indulge, like you don't want to give to a feverish brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'd go insane.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
But this scene goes on for like over 10 minutes.
Yes.
Is a little
And has no resolution.
inscrutable, right? Has no resolution. And then I feel like the next time we see her is in the following episode where it's basically, it feels like another installment of this.
Correct.
Conversation?
Another installment of
Right.
the strange, her being like, I have to go do this thing involving a bunch of names that, we don't know who I'm talking about. Tina, Billy.
Yeah.
And she just starts to break down. And he's like, do you want to end that story? And she's like, what story? The little girl who lived down the lane? And then again, it's just like, okay, and cut to the Roadhouse and we'll have a musical performance, chromatics.
But,
And then,
but also two characters we haven't seen before having an argument about whether a guy they know is cheating on a woman they know.
it's so weird. Anyway, there will be more on this is the only thing I will say.
Okay.
But it's not going to be like incredibly straightforward.
Well, weird, because I was expecting that at this point. No, I really, I'm feeling a little on edge about this. And if it's, I reserve judgment until I see the end.
Yes. Okay. Episode 13, I will say I would call the arm wrestling episode.
Yes.
Right? That's the best way to describe
Yeah.
this one. This is
Yeah.
heavy on Mr. C.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically him going to like a goon lair,
Mhm.
right?
The music is really crazy at the start of
Yes.
this episode, I gotta say.
Yes. The episode I think begins with the Mitchum brothers taking Cooper, Dougie back to the office and like with lots of gifts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just
The
being
car,
happy,
yeah.
right?
And they're like doing like a conga line in the
Yes,
office.
it's so fun.
And then Sizemore realizes like, I'm fucked.
Right. I did.
And Fischler puts the screws in and is like, you have to resolve this today.
Right.
Yeah.
You have one day to kill Dougie.
Mm-hmm.
But then yeah, it's the goon village, the goon warehouse or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just Mr. C winning them over, essentially with punches
That's
and
an interesting way to describe
and
it.
arm wrestling.
The big guy, Derek Mears, who of course was remake Jason Voorhees.
Yes, in the 2009, right?
Yes, in the Your Tits Are So Fucking Juicy movie.
I want to
David,
look.
how
You
else
set it up, so I have to now find.
What?
I now have to find the exact line.
Sorry,
It's David's
Fran.
favorite quote that he sometimes misquotes.
That's the reason I wanted to. So in the remake of Friday the 13th that came out in 2009, largely I think just because there was a Friday the 13th they found to be a good release date,
Yes,
right? Like because it came out on a Friday the 13th. I think.
correct.
Do you know do you track what I'm talking about so far? In 2009, they remade it, and there's a
And this
sex
guy,
scene.
the arm wrestling guy, played Jason Voorhees.
Okay,
in that,
yeah.
the biggest Jason.
February 20, Friday the 13th of February,
Okay.
2009.
I was gonna say, if it came out February 20th, that's a huge fucking whiff.
They don't realize it until like, wait, they're like, fuck.
Wait, it was last Friday?
I want to say I forget the actors. I'm sorry to the actors.
Juliana Gill.
Juliana Gill. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember the guy.
I don't either. Who does?
It's not Ben Feldman. He's in it.
I saw Ben Feldman at a restaurant once.
How's he doing?
Handsome.
What was he eating?
Chinese food.
Because that movie has Padalecki, Raihedi, Panabaker. It's got all these CW stars in it.
Yeah.
Ryan Hansen's in it. Like it's just like scooped through like the WB and CW and Fox, where it was like, who can we pick up? Who's around?
Yeah.
I have to say something about Ryan Hansen, but I'll save it.
That's fine. There's an obscene sex scene. It's obscene in a perfectly fun, dumb slasher movie way, where he's filming her with a digital camera
While she rides him?
Yes, while she is on top of him, and he says, "Your tits are fucking just ... so juicy, dude." That's how he says it. It's
That's
amazing.
awesome.
It's one of the great line readings in horror cinema.
Yeah.
And she says, "You really know how to give a girl a compliment." It's a very funny. It's an objectively funny scene.
Sure.
Like it's not a scene where you're like, "Oh, what they stumbled into this nonsense." You're like, "No, this is funny. Like this is good." Anyway, Derek Mears is the villain in that. Wasn't he in a Swamp Thing? Maybe.
Yes, he was Swamp Thing. I mean, because he is such a physically striking presence, and he's a very skilled actor, and he has like improv training.
Hell yeah.
Is very funny. I feel like was on Community. Maybe plays Kick Puncher.
Oh yeah, that's right. He does.
Right.
And I love that joke in the Community. Yeah.
Yes. But ends up doing a lot of creature stuff.
Yeah.
Prosthetic stuff. But as a guy you just introduce on screen, and you're like, yeah, you wouldn't want to arm wrestle
Yeah,
this
it's
guy.
the heavy.
Here are the stakes.
So he's there, and Mr. C kind of toys with them before destroying him. In the
Neutral
arm wrestling.
position.
Yes. Powerhouse McLaughlin stuff.
It's unbelievable.
It's all in his face.
Yes.
That you do believe like this is the strongest being in the world or whatever. It's all his face.
There's also, I'm watching this. I know he's like this supernatural evil, and he's capable of doing like inhuman things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Derek Mears is beating him. And I've seen so many versions of this scene where I'm like, oh, what's going to happen next is that he flips him over and his arm breaks.
Right.
Right? Like there's some other movie I'm thinking of where a guy gets powered up and he starts breaking people's arms. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
And everyone's like, you need to chill the fuck out.
Right.
I don't know. It'll come to me at some later point. But I'm like ready for it to just be like a clean snap.
Right.
Like he was humoring him.
Yeah.
And instead he resets him back to square one and just goes neutral position. And you're like, that's scarier.
Right.
That he's basically
He's had total control
admitting
the whole time.
that
Right.
he can place him on whatever degree he wants.
Yeah.
And then like lets him once again get him close and then goes back to neutral position and then starts scolding him.
Yes.
How much it
this
hurts.
Is, right, exactly. And essentially it's just like this is a children's game.
Yes.
And then punches his face in.
Yes. Nasty.
Yucky.
But
It's
funny.
so silly because
Yes.
all of these guys are scary as hell looking.
Well, it's
And
also
they
just
have
funny
this
that they just
insane
gather
lair.
together. Right, exactly. In this like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles lair where they're just, I guess, waiting for a phone call to be like, hey, someone needs a large man. Go to this place.
Yeah.
Right. And
Is it The Fly? Does The Fly have a scene where he fucking arm wrestles a guy and snaps his arm off?
yes. The
I've just
Fly
heard-
has an
yes.
arm wrestling scene.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. That is
Right.
what you're thinking.
I was just
of.
like, there's some sci-fi movie that has this sort of setup where someone's body is transforming and they go in to try to like get revenge on jocks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is where the sort of the Mr. C gets all the information of like someone gave me this ring, told me to put it on and to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Horne shows up at this point. He's sort of revealed to be kind
He
of
has like
involved with all
membership
of this.
in
Exactly.
the goon gang.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. C kills Ray, who's made it this far somehow, but is finally dead.
But gets his like interrogation he wants,
Right.
puts the ring on him, sends his dead body to the lodge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the big thing that happens in this
He
episode.
references Philip Jeffries.
He does. The David Bowie character, of course,
Mhm.
who we don't see in this show. You'll sort of see a version of him at
Okay.
a certain point. but is sort of driving the campaign against Mr. C from beyond.
Mhm.
Is Bowie shows up in Firewalk with Me.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that he pops up in?
No.
Of
Missing
supple-
pieces.
Well, that's true. Which
Yeah.
was part
That's
of Firewalk.
what I hadn't seen
Yes.
and wondered if I maybe messed up not watching that.
There's a
before
little
this.
more of him. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, he notoriously did not was supposed to be a bigger part in the movie, and then tour schedule shit happened, and he
Yes.
only shot a little bit,
And
and
he
they
was never
used even less of it.
Yes, he wasn't very satisfied with his performance. Didn't like the accent he did,
Yeah,
and I think was considering coming back for this, but then he was sick and he died, and
Right.
like whatever. There's sort of workarounds for that.
yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
But I think his passing happened pretty late in their planning.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so. Anyway, they sort of figure it out, but he's basically implied to just sort of be from beyond a force working against Mr. C,
Mhm.
who's maybe for a long time been trying to figure out how to defeat Bob.
Mhm.
What are the other big thing? You know, Bobby going to see Ed and Norma at the diner. Got some Ed stuff.
I mean, it's another Dana Ashbrook moment that
Yep.
kind of kills me of his reaction
Mm-hmm.
to, or is it? No. It's in the scene with Amanda Seyfried,
Right.
where Shelley's new boyfriend shows up.
Oh,
Right, where
yeah.
they're talking to her. Yeah.
Right. And he just like beautifully plays like in real human emotions within a heightened show, the sort of sense of, oh, he fucked this up somewhere along the
Right.
way.
Mhm.
He's not jealous of this guy or angry at her. He's angry at himself. And he's like sort of just wistful and broken about all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just so nice when Ed and Norma invite him to eat
Well,
with them too. Because that's the thing of like being in a town with these people
Yes.
for your whole lives is like eventually you run out of people to eat with.
But then Ed has the sort of mirror of that moment when Norma's new franchising boyfriend shows up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he
Ooh, I was so mad to see him.
wants
don't
to
like
call it Norma's double R.
Yeah.
Um,
And let's lower the ingredients.
Walter Lawford is
Right.
this character.
Like this show, or let me say, this character I feel like is the embodiment of Lynch's notion of the truest evil.
Right.
Like this feels like a fucking executive note guy. Of just like,
Mm.
yeah, we love your thing. Of course it's great if the pies are fantastic and delicious. What if they kind of suck though?
Right.
And she's like, no, the pies have to be good. And he's like, of course. And I totally get that. But what if they're a little bit shitty? I just feel like, especially knowing that the show almost doesn't
Right, this is
happen
what
because
disgusts
Lynch is
Lynch.
fighting back and forth with Showtime people on like, I'm going to do this the way I want to do it or I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
It is the thing I think he thinks is quietly the most insidious thing
Right.
in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people who, as Albert Brooks would say, just
Lower.
lower standards
Yeah.
little by little. Yeah.
The musical performance in this episode is James Hurley. A lovely, lovely moment.
But let's say, bit of a one-hit wonder. He's still just playing this one song.
Just You.
Yeah.
That's his song.
Mhm.
Nice to see him, though, because he doesn't do much in the return.
When he's introduced early, I was ready for him to be a bigger part, especially since, I feel like we talked about in our season 1 episode, but his career kind of got like diverted.
Yeah.
And I thought he was such an interesting actor in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And then we have the little coda with Ed.
Yes. Eating his
His soup.
soup.
Good soup.
Also, Nadine, Jacoby.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
They finally talk.
Yes.
Right.
She's still got her drape shop.
Mm-hmm. Silent drapes.
Yep. Run silent, run drapes.
Mm-hmm.
And she just loves him.
Yeah.
And says, I remember seeing you in a supermarket during a storm or something like that.
She dropped a potato.
But this is like, this entire plot line is the kind of thing that you're like, this could be like covered in 3 scenes in one episode and be like, and that's our like check-in with the two of them.
Right.
And instead it's like been spread out across 13 episodes
Yeah.
in the most like drawn out way. It is so fascinating which things he chooses to serialize and which things he chooses to encapsulate in like one moment and never revisit.
Mm.
Right? Because it's like we have like 4 different scenes of her watching him silently
We do.
and looking like transfixed.
While he's like, the fucks are at it
Right.
again for like a while.
that comes
Yes.
after like 5 episodes worth of scenes of him just painting shovels.
But then again,
Right.
the fucks are at it again.
The fucks are at it.
He's not wrong.
He's
He's,
not.
spitting.
He's not
I wrote
wrong.
he's spitting.
We could use someone like him.
The liberal Joe Rogan.
But we are still in WTF mode, I would say at this point, right? Like very
We're locking
little.
the gates.
Yes, but very little has been answered satisfactorily
Yeah.
in any way for new viewers,
Mhm.
right? And we're 2/3 of the way into the show at this
Mhm.
point. So that's an interesting way to do it.
Sure.
Fran,
Uh-huh.
do you have any other things that you wrote down that we haven't touched on?
I love Johnny Jewel,
Okay.
who does the music for this series.
Yep.
Italians do it better. Sort of his like collective. Just wanted to shout out.
Yep.
Johnny Jewel.
I thought these were some of the funniest. If not, I think this is maybe the funniest block of episodes.
Mhm.
The Mitchum brothers are so great.
All
All that stuff
yeah.
is awesome.
The Mitchum brothers paired with the three.
The dumb cops, the arm wrestling.
No, the three assistants. They're three blonde
Oh,
assistants.
The
yes,
showgirls.
sure, sure. The
the
ladies,
showgirls.
yes.
That it's just
The show
The,
Women.
the Dougie sex scene and all of the Dougie stuff, the doctor, the conga line, all that stuff is fun.
I think once I grew to accept like the cadence of the Dougie stuff
Mhm.
and the sort of, tacit acceptance of like, oh, this is what it is.
Sure.
It's not like, preamble or prologue to
Right.
something else.
This is the destination.
But also watching the universe start to curve around and towards
Right.
Dougie.
Him break
Mhm.
reality and remake it. Yes.
You know what we didn't talk about?
What?
Sunny Jim's gym set
Yes.
looks so fucking fun.
one
It's
of his
pretty
many
wild.
presents. Yes.
Right.
But also, did you guys call that I know that as a play set, gym set,
jungle gym.
jungle gym. Sure.
Yeah.
This is sort
It
of a
has, like,
gym
lights and
shoes, running
sound,
shoes
Right.
type of thing.
It's like a backyard playground.
Yeah.
Does it come with
Set,
a spotlight?
Well, no, it's got like light piping.
Right.
No, but I'm saying there's a moving spotlight.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that came
Does that?
pre-installed?
I think
or-
it does.
Yeah.
It must.
But also, it has like the classical music coming from within it, right?
Yeah.
There's not like an external speaker system. The speakers are seemingly
It's
coming
from inside the slide.
Yes.
Seems awesome. I just said that looks so fun.
Yeah. I like that also, like, Naomi Watts has been so skeptical of everything going on around Dougie. And she has the moment of, like, what's going on here? And then is just like, I'm not going to fucking turn this down. That jungle gym set? Yeah.
Sort of a return of Martin Gare kind of thing happening with these guys.
Yes.
You guys know that one?
Of course.
Let's also I know I forefronted it, but Dougie going full Dolomite.
Yes. Crazy sex. Yes.
Right.
Bed rocking.
Right. She reaches completion while he just lies there motionless with a goofy grin on his face.
Yeah. Maybe he's packing.
Well, yeah, but he would have been packing before.
Yeah.
This is,
but the
this is
vibes were
exactly
bad.
what happened in Return of Martin Gare.
Okay.
The new guy can really go for it.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a Dave.
Ben, do you know
situation.
about this?
It's kind
I do not.
It's this like Middle Ages court case, an early example of a court case that eventually became like a book and a movie about.
And it's just like a storyline. Like Downton Abbey did a Martin Gare storyline. Like it's
Yeah,
a storyline
yeah,
you
yeah.
could always do.
Mhm.
Of a married couple, and the husband goes off, I think, to war,
To
or
war.
go do something, and then a different guy comes back and
But,
is
like-
like, "I'm your husband."
Bandaged up or something.
Oh, sure.
And it's
Yeah.
like the war has changed me, but I am Martin.
He's like a
Gare.
changeling husband.
And
Yeah.
back in the Middle Ages, the wife or whatever was just like, "Okay, sounds good." And they, I think, didn't have kids, and then suddenly they did have kids.
Yeah.
And then this new husband basically got into like a property dispute with someone else. And there was this big case about that. And then midway through that case, the original guy came back and was like, wait a minute,
Wow.
that's my wife. And her whole thing is that her testimony was like, I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know it was a different guy. I thought it was the same guy.
Right.
And people have long sort of tried to be like, was she lying?
They didn't have pictures back
Well, that's
then.
what they
Yeah.
didn't have pictures. They didn't have mirrors. She hadn't
Right.
seen him in 8 years.
Yeah.
Would you know it's the guy?
But that's also the
I love
imposter.
Martin Gare.
That
It's a
whole
great
thing
book.
where it's like
Yeah.
when you're dealing with the trauma of thinking you've lost someone, will your brain do more to justify things in order to not have to live with the tragedy?
Well, there's that famous instance of the French couple.
Well, no, that's the French kid who scammed the American couple.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, the
But
imposter.
yes, that's
Yeah.
what I'm
Imposter.
talking about. The
Yeah.
imposter. That's another example of where they were just so missing their child that when the
They were like,
stranger shows up,
Right.
clearly is not
But
their
we
kid.
want it to be the kid.
They
So,
wanted it
yeah.
so
Yeah,
badly.
That's a lot of like everyone refuses. People are like, Dougie, you sure are acting strange. No one is like, Dougie, you seem like a dog. You're like a malfunctioning robot. You know, like people take 10 seconds of being a little bit disarmed by his behavior before they go like, wait a second, are you the smartest, best fucker of all time?
Yeah.
Human brain's crazy. Look, on this show, we usually do a segment called the Box Office Game, which is brought to you by our friends at Regal. Regal Unlimited is the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. And hey, you can sign up now in the Regal app or at the link in the description and use code BLANKCHECK to get 10% off your 3-month subscription. Fran, you're a famous Regal clown.
I'm a Regal clown card carrying member.
Yeah.
I'll be there Friday.
To see what?
See Wicked at 10 a.m.
Hey,
Oh,
What?
did you just want to beat the rush?
No, it just seemed like a good time of. It's probably my favorite time of day
An
to
early
see a
morning
movie.
Wicked. Yeah, you could get some green
And
or
I think
pink
I'm-
coffee
Yeah.
to supercharge. Yeah.
I think I'm most generous artistically earlier in the day.
Interesting.
do you want me to find specific TV ratings?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say, unfortunately, today we're playing the ratings game because we're covering TV shows. Unless we want to play the box office game for the same
I was
weekend.
thinking of that, but I don't know.
It's 5 weekends.
Well, we're not going to do 5.
That's what I'm saying. So
Right.
let's pick a ratings thing.
I'm trying to find. It's so annoying how like fussy this thing, like searching for ratings are.
Great.
July 9th, 2017.
Okay.
How does this work? Are you guessing what
It's a
the?
great question. And much like Twin Peaks: The
Is it
Return,
supposed
you
to
might
work?
not
Because
get
like
satisfying
it's such
answers.
a bad time to do this because it's the summer, so
Yep.
there aren't even like hit network shows to bring up.
Sure.
It's like truly the random
Well, okay,
shit that
but
plays.
but last time we did cable
I know.
ratings, so I'm like, let's do summer, even though it's meaningless.
I'm trying.
Let's do the
This is
chaos
actually feeling like the Audrey Charlie scene
of summer
right now.
network ratings. I'm saying let's lean into the weirdness.
Well, I have network ratings. Okay, so here's
Okay.
number one that night was a rerun of a news show on CBS.
Perfect.
I'm
It's
serious.
60 minutes.
60 minutes. Got
Wow.
a 7.4.
Huge.
Then number 2. Okay. I
Okay.
bet this was fun. A game show, but a celebrity version.
It was a celebrity version of a game show. Huh. Was it a new game show?
No, this is a long-running game show.
Long running.
Yeah. It's had a few hosts over the years. Its current host is probably the most iconic.
Its current host is probably the most iconic. A summer celebrity edition. It is Celebrity Family Feud.
That's right.
Okay.
I can't tell you who was on it, but I can tell you it was a Celebrity Family Feud.
Give me the date and let me see if I can
Oh,
do
for
a
crying
secondary
out loud.
search here.
July 9th, 2017.
You guys would be good on there with Marie.
Probably.
Oh, we'd kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family Feud is pretty fun.
Yeah.
I would be bad at the where you have to be on your own. I like being in the group.
You
The
take
30 seconds on the clock,
the
like
performance
that's
anxiety we
intense.
get to you?
Well, it's just scary.
Sure.
Number 3 was the big reality show of the summer. I feel like I never am aware of what's going on, but it's always there.
Is it a Bachelor?
No. That's a in season. This one's
Okay.
always on in the summertime.
Big Brother?
Big Brother.
Yeah.
It's like that just happens every year. I've
Mhm.
never heard anyone talk about it. Survivor, I have friends who watch Survivor, Bachelor,
Sure.
like I never hear about Big Brother, but it just every year we lock 20 people in a house and film them. I guess.
You said it was July 9th, 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Family Feud episode was MLB legends versus NBA legends and NFL stars versus NFL legends.
Great.
That sounds a little complicated.
It does.
Sounds
I
good.
recognize 0 of the names.
Give me some of the MLB legends.
I can't differentiate who's who. I'm just going to list people for you right now. Levon Bell, Tyrone Bogues, Derek Brooks, Marshall Falk, Prince Fielder, Horace
Prince
Grant,
Fielder's a
Fielder.
player. Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, Robert Horry,
This is all over the place.
Pedro
era-wise.
Martinez.
Oh, Pedro was there. Amazing.
Gary Payton, Patrick Peterson,
Basketball. I should have
Harold Reynolds, Ozzie Smith. I know Ozzie Smith.
There you go.
Yeah.
The Wiz.
James Worthy.
Cool. Probably pretty good. Number 4, let me just do the math here, was another, well, what the fuck is this?
Exciting.
Another thing hosted by Steve Harvey.
Oh, great. Not Miss Universe?
No.
Hmm.
This show appears to have lasted for 1 year. The summer of 2017.
It only aired in the summer of 2017. Not a game show format, variety
It
format.
was not exactly. It was a competition show.
Is it Kids Say the Darndest Things?
No, because that ran forever.
Yeah, and
This
I
was
think
kind of a ripoff of another show hosted by Steve Harvey.
They took one Steve Harvey show and
No. Steve Harvey is hosting this
okay.
show.
Are
but
there
it's-
kids involved though?
Can you give us a hint about the show it ripped off?
You love it.
I love it.
Yes.
Is it a Shark Tank ripoff?
Correct.
Is it called?
You'll never guess. If you don't know the name, you'll never guess. The
it-
name does not suggest Shark Tank ripoff.
Okay.
It's called Steve Harvey's Thunderdome.
Fuck that.
Thunderdome?
That's
Fuck
right.
that.
That's right. Was that number? I don't even know what number we're on.
Great.
That was number
I thought that was
3.
4. Oh.
Was that?
I thought that was 3.
Yeah. Number 4 is another game show that aired on ABC in this game show night. Legendary game show. It's been on forever.
Legendary game show, been on forever.
Or at least.
Is it usually a primetime show?
I don't fucking know.
It's like Wheel of Fortune.
would?
Yeah, it's not that famous, but you know. There's
It's-
been many franchise versions of
It's
this.
not Let's Make a Deal. It's not
No.
Price is Right.
Millionaire?
No.
Many franchise versions of this. You have no fucking idea where it plays. You seem really
Dancing?
passionate about it.
Dancing with the Stars?
No. You guys are shooting too high. It's just one of those game
Pyramid?
shows.
There we
How
go.
many dollars?
$1 million pyramid?
It's $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah. It started out as the $10,000 pyramid.
I think
Now it's 100.
Michael
Might be-
Strahan?
Now it is. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
not sure who hosted it back in 2017.
Yeah.
But currently, I believe it's hosted by Michael Strahan. Yeah, looks like, it would have been him then too. Okay. And number 5 is, oh man. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
David, just try to
rerun of
hide your
another
enthusiasm a
ABC.
little
Well,
bit.
it's a
Okay.
little boring.
Okay.
ABC really owns this night with, this kind of programming.
Okay.
It's a rerun of an ABC compilation show.
America's Finest Home Videos.
Still crushing.
It is the one consistent we have found across the entire history of Twin Peaks throughout decades. Fran,
Oh, yeah.
is that America's Finest Home Videos is unkillable.
Yep, just keeps going. The
Yeah.
only other thing I want to point out in this list is that CBS ran something called Candy Crush. Was that just like a Candy Crush game show?
Must have been.
Yeah.
Must
Jesus
have.
kinda remember
Christ.
this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was hosted by Mario Lopez.
I just learned about Deal or No Deal Island.
Several reviewers called it one of the worst game shows ever made.
I love
Deal or
Deal
No
or No
Deal
Deal so
Island?
much, and I think Deal or No Deal Island is an affront to God.
I just think it's so funny. We can put Island on anything.
Do they just play the game on an island?
No. But I don't know what else they do. But that's part of it.
But I think there's like an additional aspect of some sort of survivory outlast.
All right, now I have to pee, and we've been going for a long time.
Okay, well,
I'm not complaining.
Fran,
What?
our dear friend Blockbuster Fran
You
Hoepfner.
okay,
What?
Fran?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Is there anything you'd like to plug?
I'll plug Fran Magazine,
Yes,
of
everyone
which
subscribe.
I'm actually the editor-in-chief.
Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry to downplay.
What a reveal.
I'm sorry to downplay my own role in that magazine.
The old
yeah,
gray lady.
it's at
Fran Magazine.
Substack. Yeah.
Yeah.
The middle-aged great lady. Yeah, that's it. And Bright Wall Dark Room, which I love to plug.
Yeah.
Which is always doing good stuff.
You're always
Subscribe.
doing great stuff over there.
Yeah, I got to figure out what to write about next. Maybe I'll write about
10 a.m.
Here.
Wicked. Oh,
or,
Here.
Or 10 a.m. Wicked.
Have you seen Here?
No, but I really want to.
See here.
I'm going to see it.
I, mean,
have
I
a
don't
sto-
like
I have
it,
a
but I do want to know what Fran thinks.
I have a
Yeah.
story about it, but I'll tell it
It's
off mic.
It's a firmly off mic story?
Yeah.
Okay. And hey, while you're signing up for Fran Magazine on Substack, also check out the checkbook, the Blank Check newsletter. Jesus. The Blank Check newsletter, which Marie Barty is doing an incredible job with.
And Ben, I think you want to say something.
Like a lot of the episodes, not all of the episodes, but a lot of the episodes of Twin Peaks, it ends with a song.
Oh!
And it's that time of the year again.
Jingle. That's my contribution.
Time to slow things down.
Yes, that's right. Another slow Christmas is upon us. We're recording this in advance. I can say now, currently in this moment, I'm not exactly sure what the album is going to be.
Exciting.
Good.
Yep. but it will be out in the world at the time of this episode being released.
So maybe this will be a less collab heavy and more like Ben back in the lab, are we thinking?
No, it's just kind of more, will people get stuff to me in time?
You're always putting out a lot of feelers, and then there's a frantic rush of like what's making it in by the deadline.
Pretty
So,
much.
possibility it's an entirely AI album. We'll see. Who knows?
Let's say no.
I'm
yeah,
joking.
let's not
It
say
won't
that.
be an
Yeah.
AI album.
Yeah.
Ben is not doing any what's the thing everyone got mad about back in the day?
Many different. The Ben FT.
Ben FTs, none of that is all jokes.
Yeah. The end of the episode here, I figured I'd like to just play a little sample of one of the songs that I can confirm will be on the album.
Great call. Well, let's say, and as always, here is an exclusive first glimpse for your ears of Slow Xmas.